talkSPORT Sports Update, powered by the Nissan van range. Commercial vehicles that go the distance for your business. Search Nissan Vans or head to your local Nissan Van Centre.
Good afternoon, I'm Max Scott here with your sports headlines. 14 months into the 3-year project and Ruben Amorim's been sacked by Manchester United, and it's left Simon Jordan completely bewildered by the whole saga.
What was the point of Ruben Amorim? What was the point of this experience? You've had 14 months of him saying rather absurd things and then seemingly get himself together, a team that's seemingly inch by inch, yard by yard getting slightly better, and then boom.
talkSPORT understands an explosive meeting between Amorim and Jason Wilcox before the Leeds game put the writing on the wall. Amorim accused United's director of football of interference and broken promises. Our chief football correspondent Alex Crook says Amorim's public response to this put the nail in the coffin.
When a manager goes to war with his paymasters, there is only one winner, and particularly when you're talking about a manager who's been in charge for 14 months, he's had more than 60 games, he's won less than half those games.
Club legend Darren Fletcher will take charge of United's clash with Burnley on Wednesday, which is live exclusively on talkSPORT. It's our understanding the top brass will consider keeping him in charge for the rest of the season, but another interim could be appointed till the summer. Meanwhile, Enzo Maresca is said to have a close relationship with the United hierarchy, and Andoni Iraola and Oliver Glasner are both out of contract this summer. For all the latest updates on that massive story, head to the website at talksport.com.
talkSPORT News.
As the Venezuelan leader heads to a New York court, Sir Keir Starmer shares his thoughts on the matter, and a man's admitted dressing up as a Royal Naval officer on Remembrance Sunday without permission. More from the news team at past.
talkSPORT weather with QuickFit. With a huge range of premium brands available, we've got what you need to drive away happy every time. Visit your local centre or quickfit.com and book today.
Many places will stay dry today with sunshine, but still very cold. Snow showers will continue across parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland and some coastal counties.
To Hawksbee and Jacobs. This, of course, is not the voice of Radio Hawksbee that you've been expecting after over 75 years of continuous broadcasting. The great man has finally fallen at Beecher's Brook, shouting at Tottenham Hotspur's ineptitude yesterday in the very cold conditions. He has contracted laryngitis.
I know.
I did equal shouting, but I was indoors watching on television. I'm Danny Kelly. My voice is intact, and I'm delighted to be sitting in, slouching in, some would say, for Paul Hawksbee. Don't worry, everybody, the name above the door still contains Andy Jacobs, and therefore it should be a belting 3 hours. Hello, Andy, how are you?
Hi, Danny. Pretty good, thanks, and thanks for stepping in at this late notice. I spoke to Paul this morning, and his voice did sound pretty bad, but hopefully he'll be back tomorrow, but if not, I'm sure later in the week. And,
Let me just say that I'll finish off this soliloquy by saying, of course, we'll be covering all the big stories of the day, as well as doing our usual business, darts, American football, everything happened in the Premier League this weekend. Welcome one, welcome all to Hawksbee and Jacobs with me, Danny Kelly, and him, Andy Jacobs, right here on talkSPORT.
What a great intro.
Oh, there you go, Andy.
You've done this before.
They brought in a pro here. First of all, let me say that what a great morning it is, or is it, for the managers of West Ham and Tottenham, respectively, that they suddenly are not the big story. And I love, Andy, that I suppose I'm ahead of the tabloids here. Amorim replaced by interim. It's a great moment in football, isn't it? We will get on to the Manchester United in just a second. I mean, it's been covered in great depth already. There's loads of stuff about it on the talkSPORT website, and we will keep coming back to it. Ben Foster, former Manchester United goalkeeper, will join us in a little while to discuss exactly how we got to this. Andy Brassell will be with us, and Brassell knows Amorim's work in Portugal in particular inside out, and he'll be trying to work out with us what happens when people get to Manchester United. And Andy, but I must start, if I may, by saying that, of course, this is not the first high-profile manager to cross swords with the club's administration and immediately be shown, the door of the exit, because same thing's happened to your club, Chelsea. You delighted?
Well, I'm not sad. Put it this way. I mean, I was no great fan of Maresca. I didn't particularly like the football. He did a good job. It doesn't really matter who is the actual manager of Chelsea, because we all know how it works. Where these blokes go wrong is they don't seem to realise what their job is. Their job is two things. It's to basically coach the team and then take all the flack. That's their job. So once they start trying to make themselves look good in front of the fans by saying, well, it's not me, actually, it's the people above me. Well, the minute you do that, you're gone. So Maresca definitely engineered his own exit. Maybe he knew this was going to happen. Who knows? He might turn up at United. Nobody knows. But, I mean, no. Once they start that, then it's just, hopeless, isn't it, really? And
But isn't this the, this will be a recurring theme, no doubt, during the next 3 hours. Isn't this something those of us who watch football for any time, got to get used to? Things have changed. The idea of the manager stroke head coach running the club, and people will come on and say, oh yeah, but Pep runs the club. I bet you he doesn't. Arsenal is now run by the manager and all the rest of it. This is not a possibility anymore. And the reason is simple, isn't it? Things have changed from being local football clubs where a man like even Sir Alex Ferguson could run the thing from top to bottom. These are now international, trans-global institutions, some of them run by very wealthy people, some of them run by actual states. They're not going to give one person complete control for the simple reason. Move it away from Chelsea and Manchester United. Liverpool this summer, outgoings, ingoings, spent it saw about £750 million worth of footballs moving in and out of the club. You can't give that responsibility to one fella, because what if he goes tonto? What if he's no good at it? Suddenly you've got £750 million of your money floating around on a bloke who's writing down tactics on the back of a fag packet. It just can't be like that anymore. And yet again, we've seen it again and again and again. This is the crunch point for modern managers, however talented. They come up against this. And you're right to mention, Maresca's, it was essentially a suicide note. Yeah. It saves you having to go through 6 more boring football matches to get yourself the sack when you realise you're not going to be given the power you think you should have.
But you can see at Celtic, Wilfred North, it's going to be the same thing. You can't come in there and have results like that and think you're going to survive. It's just not going to happen. So, but talking of predictions and things that might happen, one of the things that always happens this time of the year, do you know about the asparagus woman, Jemima Packington, 69?
No, let me shock you, Andy. I do not know about asparagus woman Jemima Packington, 69.
She's a fortune teller who throws asparagus. We've had her on the show, actually. What she does is she flings the asparagus up in the air, and wherever they land, then she makes her predictions for the coming year. So she's forecast a tremendous Home Nations World Cup, honestly. And the rest of her predictions aren't really predictions, really. She says things like there'll be a general election. Well, there probably won't be. And no. What else has she said? What was this thing? Oh, yeah, there might be an arrest of an ex-royal household member. Well, that's not really a prediction, is it? Let's be honest.
Yes, and also we think we could narrow it down a bit more than that, can't we?
She'd be better off boiling the asparagus and serving them with hollandaise sauce, would be my prediction.
Well, Andy, asparagus has a particularly lovely place in my family at the moment, because my mum, God bless her, she's in her 90s, and she is struggling, it's fair to say, to remember necessarily things that happened yesterday. You talk about her girlhood till the cows go home. We all know this is part of a condition.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
It's lovely, though, because every time she comes for her lunch up here, my missus tends to give her asparagus, because My mum believes she's never had asparagus before, and so we give it to her and she goes, what is this? It is absolutely delicious. And so we have this great moment of joy every time she comes.
That's good.
I think the joy for those who are, I'm not an asparagus eater, for the others though, is rather dissipated by the fact that she then puts her fork into the serving bowl and takes the whole lot. Because along with her memory, she's lost some of her social boundaries, and so she eats all the spaghetti. Bless her.
Bless her, definitely.
Andy, listen, before we get back into the serious end of football, I believe you want to set another ball rolling on the show today, and that is, and I'm sure every single person listening to your voice this time of year will sigh when you say the words unexpected bills.
Very true. A businesswoman racked up a £153,000 phone bill, according to the Daily Star, during just 12 days in the US, with one call costing $37,000. I mean, basically, she didn't have roaming.
Right.
And actually the company let her off, which was pretty nice actually, because she said she couldn't pay. I'm not surprised, but I've done something similar. Once I was in the days of Club Call. Remember Club Call?
Yeah.
And I used to phone. It was the only way, really.
For the teenagers, you could ring up a telephone line and listen to a bloke talking about transfer tittle-tattle and about how your club was or wasn't
injuries,
doing.
what's happening, and I was addicted to this. I mean, I just phoned
Were
every
you?
day. Oh yeah, blimey, every day, because there was no internet. The papers,
and there was no Hawksbee Jacobs. It was terrible.
It was terrible. So, and I basically fell asleep listening to this thing one night, and I got a bill for 145 quid, which in those days was quite a lot of money.
Yeah.
And then I was in Milan once, and I walked past Prada. I'd never been there, and I thought, it'd be nice to get something for Sue. That'd be good. I'll go in there. And I picked out this bag, and it was only sort of like a nylon shopping bag with Prada written on it. So I thought, well, that can't be too bad. And I thought it was 15 quid. I thought, well, that's not bad, really.
Yeah,
Got home, it was 150 quid. Brilliant. So, again, some time ago, and quite a lot of money. So I'm sure
Roy Keane tells a very similar story, doesn't he, about when he was a young footballer showing off. He went into a jeweller's with other Manchester United players to buy a wristwatch, and was shown a number of wristwatches and misread the price ticket. And this is Roy Keane, don't forget. And he thought it was 1,500 quid, which was a lot of money in those days. In fact, it was 15,000 quid. And of course, even Roy Keane, he couldn't back down. He gave the bloke 15 grand for the wristwatch.
Not bad.
So what we need to know, I guess, here, have you ever received an unexpected bill? I mean, they're going to be high, aren't they? But if you've got an unexpectedly low bill, and I've got a story about a really low bill,
really,
I can tell. But if you've had a really real shocker of a bill, it's come out of the blue, or you've misjudged the price of something, and of course, I don't know about the lady listeners, but men can never back down. Once you've gone up to the shop where they were thinking in your hand, they go, "That's 300 quid." Yeah. You can't say, "Oh, that's out of my price range." I'm sorry. You have to keep going. Take out the credit card, push it into the machine. You've now got this thing that you thought was 50 quid in your hand, some gardening implement or other. So the usual numbers: 81089 if you want to text us. We won't take calls on this. We need to leave the lines open in case more matters of greater import come to light. So 81089 for your text. Andy will keep an eye on those. Have you ever received a really unexpected bill? And of course, the more ludicrous the size of it, and the more ludicrous the thing you're actually charged for, the more delighted we will be. It should be a rich vein, this, and thank you for bringing it to our attention, Andy. But of course, the big story is that Amorim replaced by interim. Manchester United have followed Chelsea's example and ditched their beleaguered manager, let's be honest, in both cases. And next up, we'll talk to Manchester United former goalkeeper Ben Foster about what's happened at Manchester United. I'm afraid to ask what next, because we just end up playing a kind of bingo of football managers we've all heard of. We'll leave that to greater experts, perhaps Andy Brassell, when he comes on a little later. You're listening to Hawksbee and Jacobs with me, Danny Kelly, and him, Andy Jacobs. You're doing so on the mighty, mighty talkSPORT. Yeah, you're listening to Hawksbee and Jacobs here on talkSPORT in partnership with Toolstation. Stay one step ahead, whatever the job. Next stop, Toolstation. Yeah, you're listening to Hawksbee and Jacobs with me, Danny Kelly, and him, Andy Jacobs, on the morning or afternoon now where Manchester United have sacked their manager. And it was clear that something was wrong, even as, last night when Ruben Amorim was saying that he is the manager of the club, not the head coach.
I noticed that you receive selective information about everything. I came here to be the manager of Manchester United, not to be the coach of Manchester United. And that is clear. I know that my name is not Tuchel, is not Conte, is not Mourinho, but I'm the manager of Manchester United. If people cannot handle the Gary Nevilles and the criticisms of everything, we need to change the club. And it's going to be like this. I'm not going to quit. I will do my job. I just want to say that I'm going to be the manager of this team, not just the coach. And I was really clear on that. And that is going to finish in 18 months. And every department, the scouting department, the sport director needs to do their job. I will do mine for 18 months and then we move on.
18 months. I think you'll find maybe it was 18 hours, actually.
Well, yeah, and I suspect the decision was made within 18 minutes of that conversation. What do you think he was getting at there?
Just that he doesn't have the control. So basically, because things have gone wrong, he wants to, for his own reputation, his future employment with the fans, he doesn't want to say, well, it's all down to me. It's actually not me. It's exactly the same as Maresca. It's blame the other people. Maybe they're right to blame the other people. Nobody knows. Sure. We're not there. But that's what they're doing. And once you do that, it's like us. We were talking about it here. If I start having a go at the bosses here on air, I wouldn't expect to last too long, even though I've been doing it for 26 years. I haven't.
Yeah,
but,
well,
you know what I mean?
But equally, there was a. That's the 10th time I've heard that quote. The first time I've kind of latched onto, my brain has been snagged by the quote about Gary Neville, saying if they can't handle the Gary Nevilles, suggesting that criticism from outside is driving the way that the Manchester United administration are responding to things. He made the mistake there of being both very forthright in some ways, but also very cryptic in others. He might have done better just to say exactly what was on his mind, because sooner or later, once you start that, as you rightly point out, Andy, you're going to get sacked. Look, somebody who knows Manchester United a bit better than us, someone who's been inside that cauldron of footballing passion, is their former goalkeeper, Ben Foster. These days, of course, a top pundit and a brilliant podcaster. And I say, as someone who's won awards for his podcast, I say that without fear of contradiction. He joins us now. Hi, Ben.
Hi, Danny. Thank you for that. That's a nice introduction. Thank you very much.
Well, no, it's true. It happens to be. I try not to say. Unlike football managers, I try not to say anything I don't believe. Ben, we're not going to go through the drama of all this. Let me ask you a straightforward question. Post Sir Alex Ferguson and the way Manchester United is set up, is it almost an impossible job for any manager these days?
Yeah, I do. I totally agree. I don't know what the answer is. Even before Amorim came in, I didn't know what the answer was. After 18 months or however far we are down this line, I'm still not sure what the answer is for Man United. I get the impression they need somebody with a big character, a lot of authority, and almost a bit of aura to kind of take that pressure away from the players a little bit. What Amorim said there, like you just alluded to, with regards to the Gary Neville criticism, it's unthinkable. It's unthinkable that the people above Amorim would take that much of a notice of the words that Gary Neville is saying that would influence...
Or you, or me, or anyone.
But Gary Neville is only saying, as a deeply, he supports Manchester United, he played for Manchester United, he's a Manchester United fan. He's just speaking from that point of view, and he isn't the only one, isn't he? Whatever he's saying, you can guarantee the rest of the fan base is practically saying the same thing.
This is why I just think there's too many chefs trying to stir the broth at Manchester United. There's too many people who are so unwilling to relinquish this bit of power that they have at Man United, whether it's the chief execs, the director of football, the people that really want to keep hold of that little bit of power. No manager now will be able to come into Manchester United and just have full autonomy and the full say-so and be able to do whatever they want to do. There's too many shareholders involved, too much money involved nowadays. You're not going to get that at any of the top teams, probably in world football now, especially in the Premier League, the top 6-7 teams. There's too much money involved now that if you're coming into one of them teams, you're going to have to be prepared to give a little bit of leeway.
And it is all about recruitment as well. In one sense, Mbeumo and Cunha were great signings, but weren't exactly what they needed. They already had Ahmad. I mean, I love Mbeumo, but they had Ahmad. And so we could all see what they needed, but they didn't address that. And in modern football, isn't it all? It's about the recruitment, it's about the results, it's about the style of football. If you get any of those three wrong, you're in trouble.
You also need leaders as well. You need people with something between the ears, something that at certain moments in games, like Chelsea were crying out for a little bit yesterday in the Man City game, where you want somebody to, on pitch, be the manager and the captain and put their foot on the ball and calm it all down, be able to accept all this responsibility that comes with playing for Manchester United. Man United used to have a whole team full of them. They used to have 20 of those players behind the scenes. Now it seems they've got very few of it who can deal with playing, the pressure involved, especially of playing for Manchester United.
It's very interesting. Danny and I were talking before the show about conventional wisdom in football. And at Chelsea, they admire clubs like Brighton and Brentford. We all know that. But if you look at Brighton, they've got Welbeck. They just signed Pascal Gross. Brentford did a brilliant move signing Jordan Henderson. Sunderland signed Granit Xhaka. Everybody knows this, but these people think they know more than conventional football wisdom, which is why they won't ultimately succeed.
I think the teams you mentioned as well, they've got a bit of succession planning, a bit of thought behind deals and transfers and managers, and they know what the future might look like for them a little bit. Everything just needs to be a little bit knee-jerk at Manchester United, responding to this, even with the injuries that Man United got. By the way, I think Man United are on a bit of an upward trend, by the way. That you look at where they're only 3 points behind Liverpool, level on points with Chelsea. So they are on a bit of an upward trend. But I just think some of the players that have been brought in were probably forced in because of this 3-4-3 that the manager wanted to play. He was so adamant that he wanted to play this 3-4-3, and whatever new manager comes in now, I guarantee you he plays a 4 at the back. I can 100% guarantee you he will play 4 at the back.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ben, this is the thing. It strikes me, managers make their reputation either in slightly less powerful leagues, let's say Portugal, or in the case of, say, Thomas Frank, at a club with less expectation at Brentford, and they become convinced that what they've done at those clubs is the only way you can run things, that they have this philosophy they're going to stick to. So you end up at Manchester United. I watched a game the other day. They had 2 teenage centre-backs and Luke Shaw. That was their defence. That tells me they're one injury away from the reserve goalkeeper having to play at the back because he's so convinced he's got to play 3 players. I'm not saying that you can't have principles, but they have to be allied to tactical flexibility. Otherwise, you'll be out-coached by the brainiacs at the top of the game.
But it is interesting, Ben, we were talking about this as well, that the league, if you take out the top 3, who are way ahead, and the bottom 3 look like they're going to go, you've got this 14 teams, which are kind of, they're much of a muchness. There's not many points between them. There's not much between them either way. So whoever comes into these clubs, it's slightly difficult because the league is it's almost like the Championship now. It's really difficult and slightly mediocre in a sense.
I think the general standard is higher across the board. Not necessarily even standard, whether it's better than what it used to be, whether the product is better than what it used to be, I'm not sure. But a lot of the teams just seem to be very much for muchness. And you just need, probably sometimes it might just be that inspirational manager or an inspirational captain, somebody that drags your team over the line. The amount of games I played in where it was a 0-0 draw. It had 0-0 draw written all over it. And then somebody stepped up and just did one thing that got us over the line. And they were always the games. They were the sweetest. They were, honestly. I remember Tony Pulis, after a 1-0 win one time, looking at me. And he said, My favourite result in football. Sorry, that's my ring doorbell just going off.
That was Tony. He was at the door.
Yeah, better not be blooming, yeah, he said, my favourite result in football, because they go away now, they're all on the coach now, and they're miserable because they knew they could have had something, they should have had something, but we got everything. And I used to think, yeah, I get that. That's beautiful. That is. Sometimes you just need a little bit of brilliance.
But also the other thing to mention is that, that managers go through earlier in the season, a couple of months ago, Glasner and Iriolo. Oh, blimey, they're fantastic. Those everyone's got to have. There'll be people want their great man. Look at their teams now. I mean, they're like 16th, 15th, and 16th. So I'm not saying they're bad managers, but I'm saying people get this sort of flavour of the month thing about them, and everybody thinks they're brilliant. And then a couple of months later, you think, hello, they've lost 10 games in a row. It's
Liam Rosenior is just about to get the Chelsea job off the back of his worst run in the French league with Strasbourg.
Exactly.
I'm increasingly convinced that Amorim's a good manager. So is Thomas Frank. So are all these people. It's not a question in the Premier League of having a good manager or a bad manager. It's having the right manager that fits in with the philosophy of your club, the expectations of your fans, and then try and show a bit of progress on the pitch, because they can't all win, obviously. It's an amazingly mad league. Last question for you, Ben. Given what we say about the way Ineos run the club and the way these big clubs are all run, can Manchester United find a manager who can at least align the hopes of their fans with the realities of the way the club is? I'm not asking for a name here, but does such a person even exist anymore?
Yeah, they can. They can find it. I don't think they can find it yet. I don't think anybody's available just yet either. It looks to me like it's going to be an instance of what they had with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer a few years back, where he took the reins for the remainder of the season, Darren Fletcher until the end of the season. Somebody that the players know, they like, they feel comfortable with. Somebody just to get the players with the smile back on their face again.
Yes.
And if you can see them into those Champions League places, you never know. But again, but further than that, I don't know what the answer is in football anymore. I don't know what makes. For me, it's somebody that's an authoritarian figure, somebody that I look at straight away and I respect and I want to run through a brick wall with. I have to throw one name in there. The best manager in the world for me at the minute is Unai Emery, and Aston Villa fans will hate me for saying this. I promise they'll hate me for saying, because they do not want to get rid of this guy, because he is right at the top. And I don't even know if he'd be interested in it either. But I don't
think he would. He wouldn't have the control he's got at Villa. That's what makes him, such a great manager.
Yeah. Would he want to swap what he has? I mean, of course he would. Manchester United is a gigantic institution in football. I know, but maybe I'm living in the past where Manchester United really do carry a great deal of heft. Recent seasons and results suggest that they have been caught by people, but their name still means a lot. People don't turn down Barcelona or Real Madrid or whoever. Listen, thank you very much indeed to Ben Foster there. And that's why Ben's podcast is so good. He admits he doesn't know the answer for Manchester United. And anyone who says they know a short-term, definite answer of Manchester United is not a liar. That's not fair. But they're chancing their arm, because this is a difficult situation in a league, the Premier League, that swallows up good managers and spits them out. You're listening to Kelly and Jacobs, with me, Danny Kelly, him, Andy Jacobs. Paul's got laryngitis. God bless him. Hope you're better, Paul, soon. Tomorrow, preferably. And next we'll be taking a stroll through another mad week of Premier League results. I thought we were going to spend the whole of this show, Andy, talking about Harrison Reed's goal. I could talk about it for 3 hours.
It was a great goal.
Having watched Spurs' turgidity, to see that goal fly in, it reminded me why I love football.
Absolutely.
But of course, I've been overtaken by events. Thanks for listening to us.
As you heard, broken first on talkSPORT, Ruben Amorim has been sacked as the Manchester United head coach, not manager. The club has posted a statement of just 106 words, which includes, with Manchester United sitting 6th in the Premier League, the club's leadership has reluctantly made the decision that it is the right time to make a change. Amorim launched into a spiky rant yesterday after a 1-1 draw at Elland Road, seemingly criticising the Man United hierarchy.
I came here to be the manager of Manchester United, not to be the coach. And every department, the scouting department, the sport director needs to do their job. I will do mine for 18 months and then we move on.
Just after the news broke this morning, talkSPORT's Simon Jordan questioned Amorim's outburst.
The idea that you can communicate to your people that you work for through the media, I think, is unprofessional. You wouldn't want your players going out and saying something dreadful about you as a manager. So why would you expect a manager to be able to say something to the hierarchy, the real power in the room, and expect to get away with it?
talkSPORT's chief football correspondent Alex Crook has suggested as soon as Amorim spoke yesterday, things were untenable, and in the club's record under him, that this wasn't going to end well.
When a manager goes to war with his paymasters, there is only one winner. And particularly when you're talking about a manager who's been in charge for 14 months, he's had more than 60 games, he's won less than half those games.
So Manchester United are 6th, now managerless, with numerous players away due to injury and AFCON. Darren Fletcher will take charge of the team against Burnley on Wednesday, a match live here on talkSPORT. On the 17th of January, they'll welcome Manchester City to Old Trafford for the second Manchester derby of the season. That's also live on talkSPORT. You can get all the fallout of this breaking news on talkSPORT.com.
$26K for 2026 on talkSPORT.
Yeah, talkSPORT 2026 is here, and talkSPORT giving you the chance to win a massive 26 grand. And what better way to kick off 2026 than with some serious cash? Yep, £26,000. It's our biggest New Year cash giveaway, and it could be yours. It's 26K for 2026. Here is how to enter.
For your chance to win, text WIN to 83338. That's 83338. Text costs £2.50 plus your standard network rate. Or call 0343 423 9761. Lines close 12 p.m. Friday. That's when you'll need to answer your phone if it rings. UK residents only, 18 plus. This is a network promotion. Full T's and C's at talksport.com/win. So for your chance to win, text WIN to 83338 right now, and good luck.
Yeah, just a reminder, since we're going to go through the Premier League like we normally do, myself and Andy and Paul. I've had rather less time to prepare my jokes because I had to get ready for this show at short notice. But just to remind you that Manchester United, the centre of this morning's seismic drama, it would have been Chelsea, but they've already been overtaken. Their next 3 games are all live here on talkSPORT. Of course, they are on Wednesday. The 8:15 kickoff at Old Trafford. No, sorry, at Burnley. Burnley take on Manchester United. That's our talkSPORT exclusive. On Sunday, the 4:30 kickoff is Manchester United against Brighton in the FA Cup third round. That's exclusively here on talkSPORT as well. And then on Saturday the 17th, Manchester United are at home to Manchester City. Yum, 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 as they say, in the Premier League. That's also exclusive here on talkSPORT. Which takes us, Andy, we should take a deep breath now, because we're going to try and do the Premier League fixtures the way that normally the 3 of us do them. I'm going to do them actually from top to bottom, Andy, in the order they happened, going back to Saturday. And I'm going to do it in the style of Paul, who goes Aston Villa 3, Nottingham Forest 1. Aston Villa recovering from the trossicking they got against Arsenal, and Nottingham Forest after Sean Dyche's brilliant start. I know they wouldn't expect to beat Aston Villa currently, but they're not getting away from the bottom three quite as quickly as they hoped they would.
No, they've lost 5 out of the last 6, which is very worrying for them. Tomorrow night's game is huge, though. They can make themselves relatively safe if they win tomorrow. But I tell you what struck me about this game was not only a brilliant goal by Ollie Watkins, but it shows how good Emery is, because the way he's handled Watkins, he took him out, didn't he? And then now he's brought him back. And he brought him back against Chelsea, and he was brilliant. And he was brilliant on Saturday. And that's what makes Emery such a good manager. It is about man managing. It isn't just about tactics. It's about getting the players on side, getting them running through brick walls, as we say. And he does this, and that's a classic example of it.
Yeah, and, he's had to manage in the reverse of that, Donyell Marlon, who's in good form when he gets a chance, so he has to get a chance. And I thought there was the previous game where, Ollie Watkins was on the subs bench, brought him off the subs bench, and he was brilliant, totally motivated to come off and help the Aston Villa cause. It could easily, when you're trying to be England's backup centre-forward for an upcoming World Cup, it's easy to sulk. But no such thing with any of the Aston Villa players currently. They buy into the manager, his vision, their part in it completely, and they are, it could have been easy for them to have a reaction to that really severe beating they took against Arsenal during the week. But none of that. They're straight back on the horse. Forest, as you say, worrying run of form. But the game you're referring to, of course, is I think they play at West Ham next up. What a match that's going to be.
But you remember the end of season or Christmas videos that your mate Danny Baker used to do?
Yeah.
You could definitely compile one with just call it playing out from the back. It was another goal, wasn't it? Another third goal. It was a disaster. It killed the game.
Well, you know my opinion about this. I see no common sense or scientific evidence that this is doing anything except giving your opponents a better chance to win the football match. And then I get accused of people who are much younger. Oh, you want to just lump it long, do you? No, I want to play the correct sensible ball in the correct sensible situation, and occasionally mix it up. Yes, boot it long to make their defenders face their own goal.
Oh, yeah,
otherwise, you might as well issue each of the defenders in most of these games with a cup of coffee that they can consume during the game, because they're not being asked to do anything. Okay, let's move on to Brighton 2, Burnley 0. Brighton inconsistent recently, Andy, but the problem with Burnley is I'm going to say the words now. It's not fair because I'm sure they're giving it all. They're just out of their depth, aren't they?
They are. I mean, I've written here, routine victory for Brighton, routine defeat for Burnley, and that's what it was. I mean, they didn't get hammered. They're in games all the time, but
they work like dogs. They just at every moment, their individual players or combinations of players are being outmanoeuvred by slightly better players and slightly better combinations. It's a truth, and we've seen this again and again and again with teams coming up. Unless you take a huge risk, which Sunderland did, and replace virtually the whole team. I think they had brought in 14 players. The chances are that you're going to... Look, the pattern of the last few years is that even the best teams in the Championship are a long way off the worst teams in the Premier League. Sunderland did something about that, and they're being rewarded for their bravery. Scott Parker... They probably should hang on to him because he knows how to get out of the Championship.
Absolutely. Because
speaking of which, Andy... I mean, I don't know how to say this result. Wolverhampton Wanderers 3, West Ham United 0.
I just want to I've got to back refer to the goal line technology that disallowed a Burnley goal.
Yeah,
it was very, very close, and I've written here, 101-year-old Tofik Bakramov rang me up to say he thought it was in.
Brilliant.
Yes, you know who he
is.
One
for fans of Azerbaijani football there.
He was the linesman in the 1966 final, in case.
He was. Always described as the Russian linesman, but of course he was from one of their republics, wasn't he?
And I can't wait, after Brighton's early goal was disallowed, I can't wait for Arsene Wenger's new offside law to come in. I'm so sick of these fingernail offside. It's pathetic, isn't it, honestly?
Sure.
And we'll come on to the Wirtz one, but even he thought he was offside, which is absolutely mad.
Yeah, and I can solve the one about goalkeeper's eye line. If you're offside anywhere in the 6-yard box and a goal is scored, you're offside.
Regardless like it used to be, absolutely.
Yeah, you're offside.
I agree.
What about Wolves 3, West Ham 0? I mean, talk about calamitous for West Ham.
Absolutely. I mean, to be 3-0 down at Wolves, but all credit to Wolves and was it Mane, the player that came in?
Yeah, lovely.
he looks really good, doesn't he? So, a good bit of scouting. That's what scouting should be, not buying clubs off your old clubs. No names, no pack drill there. But
no, Andy, I think we know what you're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we know what you're talking about.
But he was at Rochdale, wasn't he? I'm looking at my notes.
Do you think West Ham are lucky to only be 4 points off safety at this stage?
Yes. I mean, they're really, really awful. But I mean, you'd imagine tomorrow night. I mean, it's difficult because the atmosphere will be toxic. But what the players need is it to be the opposite of that. And I think everybody feels for Jared Bowen because he's obviously. He's got West Ham in his heart. He's married to Danny Dyer's daughter. It's hard for him to leave the club, but he must be thinking. He must get to a point where he's thinking to himself, "I'm better than this," and he is better than they are.
Well, tomorrow's game has an importance way beyond the mere football match because if much more learned people than me have done the research, if West Ham were to go down, their finances make no sense whatsoever. Nobody wants to see football clubs. As I say, they're still community assets. In deep financial trouble, but it looks like this is. That's why tomorrow's game is just gigantic. And I give, actually the form Forest are in. I've no idea which way the game is. This may well be a turning point for West Ham. We'll see. Listen, you're listening to Hawksbee and Jacobs on talkSPORT in partnership with Toolstation. Pick up your wet weather essentials today. Next stop, Toolstation. Yeah, we're all over the place today because things keep happening. Normally we devote 45 minutes to our review of the Premier League. We've only got 30 today, so one or two teams are going to miss out because at 2 o'clock, Stuart Weir will join us to talk about a race for the title in Scotland that's on its ear, with Rangers suddenly hunting down Celtic and Hearts now having to look for blue as well as green and white hoops in their rear view mirror. But Andy, the one or two games that I really wanted to mention, Fulham 2, Liverpool 2, and this is because I finished watching the horror show of Spurs and Sunderland, and I thought, God almighty, another anti-football game by Spurs at least. And then I turned over to watch the last 30 seconds or so of that game at Craven Cottage, saw Liverpool take a 2-1 lead, and then 45 seconds later, Harrison Reed scored a goal that restores your faith in the game. A bloke who never scores, who hardly gets used. And for those of you who haven't seen it, he hit the ball so hard into the top postage stamp that my dad would have said, if he was still alive, the goalkeeper did well to get out of the way of that, because it would have killed him, wouldn't it? What a goal.
It was a fabulous goal. And it ruined my notes because I as soon as Liverpool got that, what I thought was the winner, I'm going, they're going to be top four. It wasn't really deserved, blah, blah, blah. Then he goes, as I'm writing it, he scores. So there you go. Yeah. But, I mean, the Wirtz one was just, I think that's VAR's absolute worst, isn't it? Every single, even the player himself, everybody knows he was offside. You can see the penalty spot. I mean, what is wrong with these people? How can you sit there in Stockley Park and go, that's the tolerance level on 5 centimetres? No. Shut up, it's offside. You know it's offside.
It's honestly the same as what Ben Foster was talking about with minor officials at Manchester United. They've got these hugely well-paid jobs, a modicum of power, and everything is not for the good of the team as far as I can see. It's about maintaining your little department within the giant machine of a modern football club. And if that happens to upset the manager, too bad. Same with VAR. They've got these jobs now. We all know they should be abolished tomorrow, not just reformed, completely abolished. But while they have got these jobs still, they're clinging on to them by getting overly busy with decisions. I wanted to put this one in, Andy, to get your view. Manchester City 1, Chelsea 1. That on paper looks like a great result for Chelsea.
It was a great result for Chelsea. I mean, the first half, the first 35 minutes, I was thinking, oh, God, this is another really tedious game. I'm sick of games like this. And then City started to play. And they scored. They deservedly scored. They missed a few, but in the end, he did something that Maresca would never do. I mean, he changed to a back three, and he changed the whole approach. I know we came back against Newcastle a couple of weeks ago, but he changed the way we played, and we took the game to them. And I thought, basically, it was a good result and a disaster for City, really, in terms of chasing Arsenal. And it's a difficult one, though. I mean. You sort of wondering whether the sporting directors were telling him what to do, but I presume they weren't, but he made these substitutions himself. Encouragingly, Delap looked good when he came on, but blimey, has he got a short fuse? I thought to myself, he's definitely getting a red card again here.
Just a quick one on Liam Rosenior, if it is to be Liam, and I think it is to be Liam. For people like yourself calling for a little bit more experience in Chelsea's youthful team, it should be noted that his Strasbourg team is the youngest anywhere in Europe just now. He is specific expert in developing very young players.
That's great. And also, I watched them beat Palace. They're decent. I've got no problems with it. I mean, Chelsea have got good players. Like Manchester United have got good players. Chelsea have got a lot of good players in every area. They should be doing better than they're doing. You can see when they beat teams like PSG, when they take a point off Arsenal when they could have won the game. What they did yesterday in the second half, they should be in that top four. They should. So it's a good job for him to take. Is whether it's whether he can do it. I'm not ruling him out. I think he's got a chance.
Look, as I say, there are no. With one or two elite exceptions, there are no good managers. There are no bad managers in the Premier League anymore. They're just the right manager for you. If you get the right one at the right time, you may well be lucky.
And the fans need to understand it. I mean, I've seen so many posts that think, perhaps they can get Ancelotti off the World Cup and this, that and the other. Can they get this one? Can they get that? They don't want a manager like that. They want a manager that does what they want him to do. That's obvious. They
want somebody who will implement the strategy. And there are at that level that you're talking about, they're the post-World Cup managers, the Ancelottis, the Tuchels, the Nagelsmanns, the Pochettinos. they're so big in the game, they want to do their own thing, and they will not want to be on a programme like that. Now, the reason you'll listen to me, Danny Kelly, rather than Paul, is that Paul has given his voice a shredding, shouting at Spurs in the cold. Tottenham Hotspur 1, Sunderland 1. I'll lead here, Andy, because, look, if Spurs had a bit of, I won't use the word cojones about them, they would have gone for it in the second half of Brentford and then tried to double their lead rather than defend it at home to a Sunderland that stripped of their best defender in Ballard and half the team who are at AFCON. Instead, Thomas Frank, who I know you admire, crept into his shell in both games. Spurs would have been in the top 5 this morning if they'd gone for it a bit more, I think. But instead, Thomas is trying to play, he would see it as careful football. Some people call it anti-football, and we had a very good email on my View from the Lane podcast today that a season ticket holder saying it's not even those things. It's nothing. They're just not trying to do anything. They were terrible again. For 20 minutes in the first half, they played a little bit better. But then once they started to settle back on their own goal, Sunderland's equaliser was inevitable. Spurs are really... And let's say we can call it, can't we? They're just not a very good team, and he's not making them any better.
I mean, I was at the Brentford-Tottenham game on Thursday night, and I said to you, I know your colleague feels the same thing. It was literally one of the worst games I've ever seen in my life.
It really was terrible.
It was desperate. And I thought they were desperate against Palace. I thought they were really lucky to beat that. And I thought to myself, Spurs have a sort of tradition which, all right, it didn't work for Ange, but at least he was in the tradition of what Spurs are. And so when those first 10 games, for example, this golden period, they look fabulous, and that's what a Tottenham team needs to do. Otherwise, the fans are not... they pay a fortune to go there. They've got this fabulous stadium. They don't want to see that dross that they're seeing at the moment. It's just not good enough. And if Thomas Frank thinks that that's good enough for Tottenham, he won't succeed there. He's got to change his approach. I mean, all right, there are mitigations. Simons was suspended. Maddison and Kulusevski, we know that he's got a lack of creativity. But even so, it's also a mental approach to the game. Like you said, go for the second goal.
Yeah, better to lose trying to win 3-2 than to just stand on the edge of your box waiting to get walloped. And the last one I want to talk about, Andy, because I want you to talk to me about Keith Edwards, is Everton 2, Brentford 4. Everything could have gone wrong for Brentford this season with a change at the top, and they sold their forward line. And unlike Bournemouth, whose selling their defence seems to be biting them in the rear, it's, after, as you would expect, quite a difficult start, Brentford now begins to look like a proper team again.
Yeah, he's done a brilliant job there. And their scouting, their recruitment is so fantastic. How do they keep recruiting forwards?
Where do they get that Brazilian fella from?
Visser, Mbuemo, now him, Igor Thiago. That is just incredible scouting, an incredible recruitment. And that's why Brentford are where they are, And Jordan Henderson, that thing we talked about earlier about signing a bit of experience. I mean, I've watched a lot of Jordan Henderson this season live, and he's been terrific, absolutely terrific, no doubt.
He made more forward passes than all the Spurs midfielders in yesterday's game.
Yeah, in the other game the other night, yeah.
Sorry, in the game on Thursday. As did Adam Wharton for Crystal Palace, and they combined again yesterday. Granit Xhaka made more forward passes than the whole Spurs midfield. I was one of those people who took the mickey out of Brentford for going for Jordan Henderson. I put my hands up. I was completely wrong. And that's a very rare occurrence, so I'm quite happy to admit it, but I was completely and utterly wrong. Sorry if we missed out your team, particularly Arsenal fans, as they go, 15 points clear with 3 games to play or something. Certainly not. That may be another reason why Paul's not here today. He doesn't want to keep repeating Arsenal's increasing lead at the top of the table. There's a great race for the title now emerging in Scotland. Some
that
very
was a good
unusual
game, the Bournemouth
participants. We'll talk about that next here on Hawksbee and Jacobs, where you're listening to me, Danny Kelly, and of course Andy Jacobs. We're delighted that you're along for the ride.
Sports Update powered by the Nissan Van range, helping business owners to work better and live better. Search Nissan Vans or head to your local Nissan Van Centre.
Good afternoon, I'm Max Scott here with your sports headlines. The Ruben Amorim era at Manchester United is over. He's been sacked after 14 months, with club legend Darren Fletcher set to take interim charge. Now, talkSPORT understands United could name a separate interim manager to take them to the end of the season, with a view to appointing a permanent one in the summer. Our chief football correspondent Alex Crook has more.
Now, if they go down that route, I think Oliver Glasner at Crystal Palace becomes a live contender. We've seen the success that he's had at Selhurst Park, winning the FA Cup, taking Palace into Europe for the first time. And, of course, he plays the same system. And he's out of contract in the summer.
So Glasner might be in United's sights, but Simon Jordan has only one name in mind.
Emery's a Man United manager. He's the best, one of the best in class.
Emery's in a job doing great things with Aston Villa.
So Man United are one of the biggest clubs in the world.
So what are you saying to me? If you're Sir Jim Ratcliffe this morning, without a doubt, the man you go for is Unai Emery.
Absolutely.
In the meantime, Darren Fletcher's in the dugout when United travel to Burnley on Wednesday night. That one's live exclusively on talkSPORT, while all the top-flight midweek games are live across the talkSPORT network. In other managerial news, talkSPORT understands Liam Rosenior is in London, finalising his move to take over at Chelsea. Blueco, the ownership group for Chelsea and sister club Strasbourg, are keen to find a replacement for Rosenior, who's currently in post at the French club. For more on all of this, head to the website at talksport.com.
talkSPORT News.
The Venezuelan president and his wife have arrived at a New York court in handcuffs, and the heavy snowfall is causing chaos for some of us, with flights and trains cancelled.
talkSPORT weather with Quickfit. Today it's raining tyres in our centres, including top-notch brands like Pirelli. Visit your local centre or quickfit.com and book today.
Many places will stay dry today with sunshine, but still very cold. Snow showers will continue across parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland and some coastal counties.
Yeah, hello and welcome back to the second of 3 hours of today's edition of Hawksbee and Jacobs. I'm Danny Kelly, sitting in for Paul, who's got laryngitis, the poor fella. What a terrible affliction for somebody who likes to talk for a living, like Paul. It really couldn't be worse. It's like being a giraffe with a sore throat. You just don't need that, do you? And Jacobs is here with me as well. We've got a lot to get through in this second hour. Andy Brissell will join us in about 15 minutes to talk all the big stories around Europe. Of course, he knows the Amorim story inside out, and we'll have plenty to say about that. We'll be talking to Ben Jacobs, all the latest transfer news and gossip. Some may say tittle-tattle. And, well, we've got a lot of things to get through, and I hope you'll be with us for most of that hour. But normally, Andy, at this stage, we'd be doing the last few games in our Premier League roundup. But I thought it would be, in fact, a better use of our time to remind ourselves of there's a title race taking a very odd turn in Scotland, and chaos at least one of the biggest clubs. I'm going to say it, Celtic's not just one of the biggest clubs in Scotland, it's one of the biggest clubs in Europe in terms of support and all the rest of it. To help us understand what's going on following a tumultuous Old Firm derby, and it shouldn't be noted, Hearts getting very much back on the horse. I'm delighted to say we're joined from Scotland. He's a regular here on talkSPORT, you know his voice and all the rest of it. Big hello and Happy New Year to Stuart Weir.
Happy New Year, Danny. Happy New Year, Andy. To you and yours. I hope you're having a good one this far.
Thank you.
Yeah, so far so good. Unless you support about 6 different teams who are getting rid of their managers. We'll get on to Hearts and Midlothian being top of the table and 6 points clear in just a second. One of the reasons that they are so clear again, following a tiny stutter in their own form, is that Old Firm derby at Celtic at the weekend. Celtic 1, Rangers 3. Look, these games can go anyway because the rivalry takes a lot of the form out of it. But I think we have to focus here, Stuart, on what's happening at Celtic. They were doing poorly or not as well as they hoped. Brendan Rodgers went. They appointed a manager out of... I mean, I follow world football. It's my job. They appointed a manager out of complete left field. I don't know what the connection was with the club. They got Wilfred Nancy the job. And now suddenly the results are in, for Celtic, historically poor shape.
Yeah, but
Can
hang on a
he
minute,
really
Danny.
change manager again?
You've also got the fact that Martin O'Neill came in with the same players. That's the biggest
I know,
indictment.
and made it all look very simple indeed.
That's the biggest indictment, Stuart, isn't it, really?
Yeah. You know, when Martin O'Neill comes on to talkSPORT and said, I would have stayed on, but nobody asked me. You do wonder what the decision-making process is in the boardroom or amongst the ownership at Celtic. Lo and behold, they've employed somebody from the MLS. I wish them well, but he's suddenly turned into Russell Martin with a list of excuses that he's coming up with as to how his players can't play. And you're absolutely right, Andy. This Celtic group is not a bad team. They're not as good as other teams have been in the past, and in the not too distant past, I have to say. But there's some very capable players in that team. You saw that in the first half against Rangers until, I don't know, maybe Wilfred Nancy gave his team talk at halftime and nobody understood it because Rangers were transformed in the second half. But you see so many managers leaving their jobs or being forced out of their jobs in the last couple of days even in Scotland. It's happened at Aberdeen. And you do wonder if Celtic are going to blink in this game of poker.
I just wonder if he could be a bit more arrogant. I wrote this quote down, this was before the meeting. He said, I've got nothing to prove, he said. Well, I think you have. I mean, that's a mad thing to say, isn't it? I've got nothing to prove. I mean, of course you've got something to prove. You've got to prove yourself to the fans. You've got to prove that you're better than Martin O'Neill, which you haven't done so far.
Yeah, the late great Jock Wallace used to talk about battle fever. I think Wilfred Nancy's suffering from some kind of fever with some of the things that he's coming out with. Listen, you do have to prove yourself, not just over the period of your contract. You literally have to do it on a daily basis, whether it's at a press conference or your next match. And so far, he's been found wanting.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, we know that managers are in a difficult situation, Stuart, because the press are putting questions to them in a way that they want to hear specific answers. I'm not one to tell Wilfred how to do his job, but when in the build-up to the Old Firm derby, where all that matters, let's be honest, is the result, he goes into a 7-minute soliloquy about his situation in the world. I just wondered whether even the players, seeing that, would just think, well, this fella's not even focusing on the job in hand. And it was interesting because I thought Celtic played... Am I right in thinking they played pretty well in the first half? I watched as much of the game as I could.
Yeah, I saw the second half.
But then they were transformed in the second half, where once they conceded, Stuart, we saw the brittleness of Celtic's playing style and confidence.
Absolutely. And you know, it was interesting what you're saying there. It's only about winning. You know, you've the Celtic captain in the huddle before the game, and if you can lip read, that's what he says. He uses one or two expletives in there as well. But all that mattered was actually beating Rangers and winning that game. And lo and behold, Celtic failed and failed miserably. But that brittleness that you talk about there, Danny, was evident right through the second half. It was almost as if anything that Rangers tried was going to come off. There were some poor performances from Celtic players and experienced Celtic players in that second half. And Rangers were just transformed. I mean, Sharmite, the Rangers striker, who you doubted if he could hit a band door with a machine gun, let alone a banjo. I mean, suddenly turns into Gabriel Batistuta and scores 2 goals. And I think that as well was difficult for the Celtic fans to take, because he was a club and a player who were being ridiculed a few weeks ago. Let's not forget, when Danny Roll took over at Rangers, they were 8 points behind Celtic and 13 points behind Hearts. They're now 6 points behind Hearts and level with Celtic. And that tells you where the success story in the last couple of months has been.
Do you think the board will swallow their pride and go back to Martin? I mean, this is the most logical, obvious thing to do if they want to save the season.
I don't know whether you saw the aftermath of the game, Andy, with the fans protesting in the stadium, outside the stadium. I mean, they were angered. And the one thing that Celtic owners or Celtic board have always done, as soon as the pressure or the heat is applied to them, the manager goes. They don't suddenly resign or stand down or step down. They stay there, and the only option open to them is for a P45, whatever language, whether it's French, Americanese, English, I'm not quite sure, to be delivered to Wilfred Nancy. And I think most people, especially after the Old Firm game, I think most people have put their money on him leaving.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, I mean, on a human level, just watching the way he's dealing with the press conference, I feel almost sorry for him, and it will actually be putting him out of his misery. All of which, Stuart, means we must not ignore Hearts. Experienced, tough Scottish football figures like Derek McInnes and Lawrence Shankland and the rest of them. The early season chaos at Rangers, the mid-season chaos at Celtic has left the door ajar, and so far they look perfectly capable of pushing through that open door, and it would be extraordinary if they were to go on and win the title. But they are, as you say now, 6 points clear. And all they're doing is playing decent football professionally and not allowing themselves to get involved in dramas.
Yeah, listen, Hearts haven't turned into AC Milan of the 90s. They're doing their job, they're winning matches, they're holding their nerve when others have creaked a bit. I said, let's see at Christmas where Hearts are. Lo and behold, they're 6 points in front. And I think they're genuinely real contenders, because simply, regardless of how they play from now on, all the eyes are going to go on Rangers. Can they maintain the form that they're in? And all eyes are going to be in Celtic as well. Are they going to change their managers? Are they going to get back into winning ways? And the bizarre thing, as you've highlighted already, Martin O'Neill was doing a very competent job, a very good job of steadying the ship and getting Celtic pointing in the right direction. And lo and behold, it's been a catastrophe ever since he departed.
Mad.
Yeah. Sorry, Andy, go on.
No, I'm saying that's it. I mean, it's a developing situation. He'll do well to survive. You just can't see it. I mean, if they want to save the season, it looks like, unless he can turn it around, but it seems unlikely.
Stuart, let me ask you a last question then about, it's almost like asking, what would it turn out if it turns out the Earth wasn't actually flat and was round? What would it mean for Scottish football if a team out with, as you people say, the big two, the Old Firm, was to actually win the title? I mean, no, it happened back in the past with Aberdeen, but that's a generation and a half ago. What would it mean for a non-Old Firm team to win the title in Scotland?
There's some places in Glasgow that probably be 3 generations ago, actually. But it was, not since 1985 have any team actually managed to beat Celtic or Rangers. That was Aberdeen. Hearts should have done it in '86 and crashed at the last hurdle up at Dundee. It would be amazing. But I do think, all in all, it would be fantastic if Hearts won the title. But we have to be honest here. Scottish football was once like Formula One, and just now we're watching lawnmower racing. It is not the same as it once was. Hearts are doing well against 2 teams in Glasgow that haven't performed and don't look like performing some weeks. And I think they've taken advantage of that. But again, let's see how the next few weeks and months play out.
The Tony Bloom factor as well.
There's a part of me that wants Hearts to win it just because, and I'm sorry if that upsets anybody in Glasgow, but I think it would be a tremendous shot in the arm for the Scottish game. And of course, Stuart's right. The standing in Scottish football, in some ways, it's not the way. You can't argue it's not what it once was. Scottish teams used to reach finals and win European trophies, but at least it's competitive, and I like watching it because it is competitive. Same reasons I like watching the Championship. Stuart, thank you very much indeed for all your insight and entertainment. That's Stuart Weir there. We thought we ought to cover that story in Scotland because it's really unfolding now. We are into the new year and Hearts are still 6 points clear. Next, we'll be joined by European world football expert, impresario and czar Andy Brassell to get all the latest from around Europe. But I really want to get his views on Amorim, past, present and future for Manchester United. Andy Brassell's with us next here on Hawksbee and Jacobs. Yeah, you're listening to Hawksbee and Jacobs on talkSPORT in partnership with Toolstation. Get up for those darker nights with electrical and lighting offers. Next stop, Toolstation. Next up for us is Andy Brassell. I was on air with him just a few hours ago on Trans-Europe Express. Good afternoon, Andy. Welcome back.
How are you? I've just been off for a quick cup of tea and a sandwich and I'm back.
Exactly so. I watched a bit of cricket and I just started straight up again. Andy, but you
it's a very trendy gilet you've got on there for people watching.
Oh, it's a beautiful thing, isn't it? It looks like he's jumped out of an aeroplane into the sea, doesn't it? And he's now bobbing about in the North Sea up there in Newcastle.
We have had I mean, being in the northeast of England, it is pretty much the same thing. All I can say is whatever the cost, the gilet pays for itself in this part of the country.
That's very, very true. We have had before we get on to Amorim,
yes.
We were asking people for unexpected bills.
Yes.
If anybody hadn't. We did get one. This is regarding Amorim. He said, I've made a huge loss today. About 2 months ago, I purchased a Ruben Amorim signed United shirt after a run of 2 wins and 1 draw. I paid a huge sum. I now feel it's worth nothing, or maybe a limited edition. At least the money went to charity, so I suppose that's fair enough.
Well done, whoever you are. At least you put the money to charity. Andy, you sent us your things we're going to talk about, some of which we spoke about last night on Trans-Europe Express. Unfortunately, it's now all out of date, isn't it? Because I really want to get your views on what's happened to Ruben Amorim, because when Spurs were looking for a new manager before Postecoglou, we talked about his suitability, because he was clearly the most talented young manager in Europe at the time who wasn't already being touted for a big job. Manchester United eventually got in there and got him. I don't have any doubts that Ruben Amorim is a good football manager, but something about the way the Premier League is, the competitiveness of it, and the way, and we saw the same thing at Chelsea, these coaches are failing to deal with the gigantic apparatus behind the Premier League clubs is becoming a pattern now, isn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, he came from a background where he knew that a working system upstairs was crucial. So I guess that's why when he pivoted after the Leeds game to the lexicon of manager rather than head coach, it was such a shock, really. And it seemed like he was trying to force something, a little bit like Enzo Maresca, a little bit like Antonio Conte before at Chelsea. And it's like we said, Danny, last night, the fact is that Ruben Amorim, knowing him from the brilliant job that he did at Sporting, so much of that was based on being a good communicator. He's one of those people who knows the weight of every single word. So he can't be surprised at what happened after that. And I very much doubt he is surprised about what's happened after that.
It was deliberate, Andy. We know he's a smart guy. It was deliberate.
Yeah, totally. And I do think, though, that sometimes managers, head coaches, whatever we call them here and in continental Europe, need to get out of their own way a little bit. For me, it has a little bit of a flavour of Andre Villas-Boas after his job at Chelsea, after his job at Porto. When he took the Chelsea job, he knew it was too soon. He knew it wasn't the right time. And Amorim knew it wasn't the right time to take over Manchester United, that he wanted to wait until this summer to take it. And they said, of course, to him, now or never. And he went against his own judgment, his own wisdom, and took it anyway. And I think United is obviously one of the hardest jobs in world football. It's really ground him down. And funnily enough, him as a communicator has probably given him longer in the job than he might have otherwise received. A little bit like Jurgen Klopp in his first year at Liverpool. You know, the results didn't really make it seem like it was going anywhere if you just took the raw numbers. And you can say the same for Amorim at Manchester United. The frustrating thing for United is I suspect that, like a lot of players who haven't quite cut it at Manchester United, he'll go off and do a great job elsewhere.
But so many of these managerial pronouncements are self-serving in exactly this way for their next job, so that it wasn't me, it was the people above me, you know, and there's too much of that, I think.
Well, so much has changed, hasn't it?
Always preparing their CV for the next gig, aren't they? That's
of course.
And, concentrating your own job. Yeah. Sorry, Andy.
No, I was going to say so much has changed upstairs at Manchester United since he's been there. So much as he took this against his own instincts, I think, at the same time. A lot has changed, and I think that is something that really came across in what he said yesterday as well, that the balance of power has changed, that the demands of him have changed a little bit. And I guess in terms of what he's done, he probably hasn't changed enough himself, has he?
The intransigence, though, I mean, when he did change and
Yeah.
got away from his system, they started to look quite good. I just don't understand why he was so wedded to this thing, as if it was the only way you could ever play football. It was a very strange idea, but there we go.
Andy, thank you for that. And I know people say, well, you need to take this job now because it may never come along again. Anybody who looks at the average tenure of managers at big clubs, these jobs will be coming around with monotonous regularity. You don't need to take one until you're absolutely right for it. So much more to talk about. Give Andy, the other Andy Jacobs, the lowdown on what Chelsea can expect from Liam Rosenior, given the work he's done at Strasbourg. We make the point as well, he's being appointed off the back of his worst run in French football for quite a while.
Yeah, he is. So they've won 2 league games since the start of October. Now, of course, they've done really well in the Conference League in that time. They finished top of the league phase, as you say. But look, with the money they've got, just like English Premier League clubs, they should be doing that. It's not far off par, to be perfectly honest, especially when the Premier League's representative is a team with no experience in European football whatsoever, even if their coach does have. But I think Rosenior is, I suppose, not many people's ideas, not many Chelsea fans' idea of the dream coach. But I think in terms of where Chelsea are at the moment and what they are as a project, and in terms of getting the most out of things as they are, it's a pretty logical appointment, I think it's fair to say, because he's someone who has had a lot of money spent for him on young, talented players who need to be made first team ready. And he's largely done that. Now, I think you could say that in the last couple of months, they've really fallen short of where they should be, because not a lot of clubs in France have any money. It's PSG and to a lesser extent Marseille, and apart from that, everyone else neither has the proverbial pot to pin nor the window to throw it out of. But I think if you look at the fact that they started this season away at Metz with the first team in the first 11 in starting a game in the top 5 leagues of players all born in the 21st century, and it's about collective and individual player development, and he's done that so well. Now, he really is a gifted communicator where it counts, and I think you can look at some of the individual players that he's worked on and really improved them. You look at Joaquin Panakei, the centre forward. You look at Diego Moreira, who both at Chelsea and when he was on loan at Lyon looked so far short of being a first team player, and now he's one of the best wing backs in the league. We know he can get inside players' heads and make them that bit better. I suppose just the added element at Chelsea, though, is not just the pressure of the Premier League, but the pressure of being at a club where you're actually expected to win stuff.
But they've got good players, and one of them impressed me yesterday, came on in the second half. He definitely benefited from Rosenior, which is Andre Santos. I thought he played really well yesterday.
Yeah, and it was something that Rosenior talked about a while back, just probably about 3 or 4 weeks back at Strasbourg. He sort of drifted off in the middle of this press conference, said, I really miss Andre Santos. I wish I still had him. You know, we really need a player like that. And obviously, there's part of you going, oh, poor me, you know. Most clubs in this league can't afford a player like that, and because of the connection that Chelsea have with Strasbourg, you're able to get a player like that for a while. But I think he'll have a massive boost from him coming in.
Andy, we've taken up a lot of your time. A couple of quickly enunciate two stories I'm really interested in. One, tell people about the first Paris derby for 47 years, and two, how West Ham's mismanagement of strikers is sending shuddering shockwaves through European football. Let's start with Paris.
Yeah, let's start with Paris. So last night, PSG beat Paris FC, their neighbours. And when I say their neighbours, their stadium is 20 metres away from the Parc des Princes.
It's amazing.
It's got the ticket office for PSG and the club shop in it. And if you're in the hot dog stand, you feel like you can lean across and touch it. It's that close. It was at the Parc des Princes last night. The return fixture is near the end of the season. Jurgen Klopp, obviously partly involved because of the Red Bull connection at PFC. And they played pretty well. They're on a poor run at the moment, despite having a lot of money invested. Backed by the man behind Louis Vuitton, of course.
The Arnault family, one of the richest families in the world.
That's right. So we're expecting a big transfer window from them. They pushed PSG pretty close in the end, a 2-1 win for PSG. But when you consider that the last time that these two met in the top flight, Carlos Bianchi was playing for PSG, you know, it's something that's culturally quite important. In terms of West Ham, we know they've gone out and got two strikers who I guess they hope will make a dent tomorrow night in that huge game against Nottingham Forest. Pablo, who came over from Gil Vicente, and Tati Castellanos, who came over from Lazio. Now, in the early game yesterday in Italy, Lazio played Napoli. Maurizio Sarri, who's recovering from a heart operation, went on a massive rant afterwards about how the club knew Castellanos was going for ages and didn't do anything to replace him. His replacement, Tijani Noslin, came in, obviously got sent off for 2 bookings.
Of course he did.
They never looked like scoring, and they went 2-0 down to Antonio Conte's Napoli, who, you know, he might have had a little moan about the transfer window in January as well. Even though he tried not to, he just can't help himself. And the other half of that, of course, Pablo, who left Gil Vicente, if he'd have still been at Gil Vicente this weekend, and he's had a really good goal-scoring run at the start of this season, they might have knocked over Sporting rather than just got a draw. And the Portuguese title race might be over already, because Porto, who we were talking about before with Andrea Villas-Boas and Francesco Farioli, they've had the best first half of the season in Portuguese league history, if we're talking about an 18-team league. They've dropped 2 points in the first half of the season. Amazing. And they're 7 clear of Sporting.
You mentioned Carlos.
Andy, as always, you're a font of knowledge and obviously a treat for the eyes in that gilet. Thank you very, very much indeed. Just a reminder, Andy Brassel there, everybody, of course, he's at the very top of the tree. This Saturday, Germany hosts a massive heavyweight homecoming for Ajit Kabayal as he takes on Damien Niebuhr. I think that's how I pronounce it, with the winner lined up for a shot at the WBC heavyweight title. Watch this Saturday only on Dazn.
Boxing update on talkSPORT with Dazn, the global home of boxing. Sign up now at dazn.com/boxing.
As you heard, broken first on talkSPORT, Ruben Amorim has been sacked as the Manchester United head coach, not manager. The club has posted a statement of just 106 words, which includes, with Manchester United sitting 6th in the Premier League, the club's leadership has reluctantly made the decision that it is the right time to make a change. Amorim launched into a spiky rant yesterday after a 1-1 draw at Ellen Road, seemingly criticising the Man United hierarchy.
I came here to be the manager of Manchester United, not to be the coach. And every department, the scouting department, the sport director needs to do their job. I will do mine for 18 months and then we move on.
Just after the news broke this morning, talkSPORT's Simon Jordan questioned Amorim's outburst.
The idea that you can communicate to your people that you work for through the media, I think, is unprofessional. You wouldn't want your players going out and saying something dreadful about you as a manager. So why would you expect a manager to be able to say something to the hierarchy, the real power in the room, and expect to get away with it?
talkSPORT's chief football correspondent Alex Crook has suggested as soon as Amorim spoke yesterday, things were untenable, and in the club's record under him, and this wasn't going to end well.
When a manager goes to war with his paymasters, there is only one winner. And particularly when you're talking about a manager who's been in charge for 14 months, he's had more than 60 games, he's won less than half those games.
So Manchester United are 6th, now managerless, with numerous players away due to injury and AFCON. Darren Fletcher will take charge of the team against Burnley on Wednesday, a match live here on talkSPORT. On the 17th of January, they'll welcome Manchester City to Old Trafford for the second Manchester derby of the season. That's also live on talkSPORT. You can get all the fallout of this breaking news on talkSPORT.com. Yeah, don't forget, everybody, that talkSPORT giving you the chance to win 26 grand in 2026. Head to talksport.com/win to find out how to enter. Right, I was up till the small hours watching the very last game of the regular season in the NFL. It went to the very last kick. And means that one of the best teams, really, and certainly one of the best quarterbacks, were lost and won't make the playoffs because the field goal was missed by the beautifully named Tyler Loop. And the Steelers go marching on. To help me understand what's been an amazing season in the NFL, we're joined by a senior US sports writer, of course, great friend of this show, Brian T. Smith. Hello, Brian.
Hello, gentlemen. It's always good to be on your program. And I love that you watched the game, because what a thrilling ending that was, and a perfect ending to the NFL regular season.
And a regular season like none I can remember. Once it became clear that the Kansas City Chiefs were falling apart, it seems to have freed up every other team, Brian. And we've had the most competitive, unusual, and I think wonderful regular season with teams, you know, like Jacksonville going on massive tears. If you say the same thing about Denver, it's been an amazing first. Well, if you like, you know, the opening part of the season, it's been amazing.
This would be like this isn't Wolves being the best team in Premier League. It's not that crazy. But it's pretty crazy. It'd be like Sunderland, all right, has a shot, which they kind of do this year, technically, to win the Premier League. You have Jacksonville, you have Denver, you go down the list, and you just said this perfectly, and you sound like you're writing for talkSPORT.com, which is where we have all this covered. The second
I'm just a fanatic, Brian, yeah.
The second that the Kansas City Chiefs dynasty started to fall apart, and the Chiefs finished 6-11 this year, and Travis Kelce might retire. We're still waiting on his decision. But it completely opened up in the NFL. And if you're the NFL, this is exactly what you want, because the 49ers, the Broncos, the Jaguars, the Patriots with Drake May, any of these teams could win the Super Bowl, which will be in San Francisco in early February, Super Bowl LX. But I don't know. We don't know what is going to happen in the playoffs, and that is the best possible scenario for the NFL.
Now, we've had a bit of a managerial merry-go-round here in the last few days, but this is traditionally the day, isn't it? The day after the season ends where the coaches get fired. I don't know how many have gone so far, but that's what normally happens, isn't it, Brian?
This is it. So this is Black Monday in the NFL, and it's known because this is when they fire their head coaches. They want to get a start. They're not Man United firing Ruben Amorim or Chelsea firing Enzo Maresca in early January after New Year's Day. They're going to wait till the end of the season, and then as soon as the regular season is over, fire their head coach. And this happened 30 minutes ago. The Cleveland Browns have parted ways with Kevin Stefanski. So the Browns will have a new head coach. We have all this covered at talksport.com and on our social feeds for TalkSport USA. And now you have to wonder who will be coaching the Cleveland Browns next year. Who will be coaching Shedeur Sanders? Will Deion Sanders get involved in this? Who will be the Cleveland Browns quarterback next year? There's so much going on already in the NFL. And in many ways, this is the busiest day of the NFL season, Black Monday in the NFL.
Okay, Brian, given that Mahomes is not in the playoffs, given that the missed field goal by Tyler Loop means that Lamar Jackson won't be in the playoffs. So arguably, and I'm only saying arguably, the two best or certainly the two most feared quarterbacks in American football are not even in the playoffs. Try and make sense of, and I don't expect you to predict me a Super Bowl winner because I think it's impossible, but just give us the runners and riders, the 4 or 5 who you think might be, in the first weekend of February, the owners hoisting that trophy to the sky.
I have a hard time admitting this. I will admit it. I will not be surprised if Sam Darnold, who saw ghosts with the New York Jets, who was, a former top pick, USC, supposed to be a franchise quarterback, cast aside, bounced around the league. He's on a fantastic Seattle team with a great head coach in Mike McDonald, a fantastic defense. They had the NFC's #1 seed. And then who even remembers Tom Brady with the New England Patriots anymore, or Bill Belichick? You have Mike Vrabel with the New England Patriots, who should get head coach of the year, and Drake May, who was a question mark as a high pick a year ago. He should win the MVP. So, right now, if I'm looking at the AFC favorite, it's the #1 seed. It's, the Denver Broncos. But the New England Patriots have been there all season. As you mentioned earlier, the Jacksonville Jaguars of Trevor Lawrence have had a fantastic year. The team that I covered for a decade in Houston, the Houston Texans, I won't be surprised at all, guys, if the Houston Texans take down Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers in the first round of the wild card round, and that defense reaches the AFC Championship. But on the AFC side and the NFC side, it is completely wide open. And I think everyone except for a couple teams has a shot to make a run in these playoffs, which is amazing if you're watching it live in London.
You mentioned Rodgers there, and he's another one of these quarterbacks that you think he's finished. He's a good age now, but he's a brilliant player, and he's managed to get Pittsburgh in the playoffs.
He really has. I'm going to be honest with you. For me, the test is the playoffs for Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers. Everyone loves to forget that the Steelers made the playoffs last year, and they had Justin Fields, and they had Russell Wilson. Mike Tomlin has made a really good career out of winning 9 or 10 games. And Mike Tomlin needs to get the Steelers to that next step. And he bet it all on Aaron Rodgers. And for me, and I've written a lot about this at talksport.com, this isn't about Aaron Rodgers making the playoffs. We all know Aaron Rodgers can do that. Was Mike Tomlin correct in investing and betting it all on Aaron Rodgers? And is he going to get them to the AFC Championship? That would be a true accomplishment. We already know that Aaron Rodgers is going in the Hall of Fame. But Aaron Rodgers still looks old to me. He's 42. He's winning games, but he's barely winning games. Lamar Jackson, I'm stunned that Lamar Jackson lost the division to Aaron Rodgers. But that's a credit to Rodgers and Tomlin. But let's see what they do in the playoffs. And let's see what this Houston Texans defense and DeMeco Ryans, what they do with Aaron Rodgers. That's going to be a really, really fascinating game to watch this weekend.
Brian, last one. My limited experience and expertise tells me whenever I can't work out who are the likely winners of a Super Bowl, I fall back on who's got the best defence. I know the NFL will hate me for saying that. Who has got the best defence? Because that could easily be down the straight with so many evenly matched teams, the thing that counts most.
I actually think everything you've said has been spot on. So we need to do this more, because I completely agree with you. This Super Bowl likely will come down to defense. And I've mentioned some of these teams, but this is what it's going to be. It's going to be the Denver Broncos and their defense and Nick Bonito. It's going to be the Houston Texans and their head coach, D'Amico Ryans, who's a defensive specialist. They have a wrecking crew who could create nightmares for Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers. And the Seattle Seahawks with their defense. You look at the teams that are the best this year. Patriots have a pretty good defense. The teams that are the best, the teams that could last until the Super Bowl in San Francisco, and we'll be there covering everything for talkSPORT, are the teams with the best defenses. It's been an upside-down year in the NFL. I won't be shocked if it's the Seattle Seahawks and the New England Patriots. But if the Texans make it with their defense, I won't be surprised either. Defense is going to win the Super Bowl.
I couldn't agree more. So we're very much on the same hymn sheet here, Brian. So thank you very much indeed. Brian T. Smith there, who it turns out agrees with me, and therefore I can say without fear of contradiction, knows his stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
It's been an amazing season in the NFL. And if you're not following it over on talkSPORT 2 on a Sunday night, you're not doing yourself a favour. And even if you're new to the sport or don't like it because it's last 3 hours and all the rest of it, please watch these games down the straight, because it is competitive beyond the point of madness this season, and it should be great. Thank you very much to Brian for that. We've got plenty more to get through, including we'll be hearing from Paddy Power very, very soon here on talkSPORT. And you're listening to Hawksbee and Jacobs, and he's got some of his famous bits to do as well. I can't wait for those. Keep listening to us here on the mighty, mighty talkSPORT.
transfer window. Breaking news on talkSPORT with Intuit Quickbooks. Tackle your self-assessment with Intuit Quickbooks. Search Quickbooks to find out more.
Yeah, well, we're very much into January now, which means that the transfer window is not just slightly open or creaked open, it's in full effect. I'm slightly confused now, but where we do? Are we doing the transfers now?
We are. I'd imagine, though.
Of course, that means we have to go to our transfer expert, Ben Jacobs. Hello, Ben.
Afternoon, gents.
Afternoon,
where do you want to start, Ben? Tell me that.
Where to start on a day that's seen Ruben Amorim sacked, Manchester City potentially moving for Mark Gay as well, and Edu Gasper being under some pressure at Nottingham Forest. I think we start with Manchester United, and it's worth pointing out that it may be a busy January in terms of news regarding a caretaker and ultimately a permanent successor, but in the market it might be quite quiet, and this was a point of contention. Essentially, Ruben Amorim said, if you've got 65 million for Antoine Semenyo but move to Man City, why can't you then spend that on a midfielder or a left wing back? And before the Leeds game, he was told by Jason Wilcox that there wouldn't necessarily be any senior arrivals in January, and that was one of the points of contention, ultimately leading to a rapid unravelling and demise, even though Jim Ratcliffe said publicly that Ruben Amorim would get 3 years.
Well, we know that doesn't mean anything. Semenyo, though, is very interesting because it looks like he's going to go to Manchester City, but he's kind of got his own deadline day, hasn't he? This has to get done by January the 10th, basically.
Yeah, I think it does, and it doesn't, in the sense that all parties have an agreement in principle. So it is about the final negotiation over when he's released and if he's going to play one more game or alternatively just go to Manchester City. And this deal will happen now. We're not expecting Manchester United to somehow pull a rabbit out the hat, nor are we anticipating that Liverpool will make a formal bid. So Manchester City are calm because, in theory, even if the clause was to expire, because they were still negotiating, my expectation is that everything they've already agreed would still be matched, even if the clause wasn't in play. And the reality is that the clause did not, unlike some clauses like Matheus Cunha to Manchester United, have a stipulated number of payment terms. So Bournemouth was starting with the premise, you trigger it, and we'll take our 65 million. And Man City obviously had to negotiate payment terms, and it's believed they'll pay it in 3 lots of 20 million, plus the add-ons, taking it to around 65 million pounds. And it's not so much a race against time now up to when the clause expires on the 10th of January. It's just about how many more games Semenyo can play for Bournemouth before finally that move is sanctioned. And it looks like Man City and Bournemouth are on the same page, and this one will get done by, if not before, January the 10th.
It's an interesting one, this, because Semenyo's a wonderful player, but it's not really what City need. You know, when you talk about Gay, that's what they need. Surely that's the deal they need to do this January if they want to stay in the title race. Semenyo just gives them another weapon, which they hardly need, really.
Yeah, and who's to say that they won't do both? So Mark Gay is a very interesting saga. There's 3 different components to this. One, Gay has always been prepared to be a free transfer after the World Cup, play every week for Crystal Palace, who are having a fantastic season. He's in Europe as well, and then take his pick of clubs. Then you have Crystal Palace's side, which is they would reluctantly sell mid-season at the right price, but they'll need to find a replacement, and that is obviously not easy in a January window. And then you have the third element in all of this, which is Manchester City have extra urgency now because Josko Gvardiol, Ruben Diaz and John Stones are all out, which might mean that City suddenly try and do something a bit earlier than anticipated. So if you'd have asked me in mid-December, I'd have said it very likely Gay stays. Palace will not want to sell. They'll find their defensive reinforcement and replacement for Gay in the summer, and that will be that. Now there is a chance Manchester City decide to bid. If they do so, they'll have to overpay, and then Palace will use that money to find a replacement in January instead of the summer. And there's a few things to watch here. The first thing is, I'm told at the moment it's early January and there may be an element of grandstanding, but I'm told Palace want more, not less, than the 35 million that they agreed with Liverpool in the summer, if they're to sanction a Gay sale mid-season. And the second thing is that, unlike Man City and Liverpool, clubs outside of the Premier League can agree a pre-contract with Gay in January for after the World Cup. And that's where we need to keep an eye on Atletico Madrid, Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, and some say Barcelona, but I'm told they've decided not to move for Marc Gay because his wage and sign-on fee are too expensive.
35 million is a big premium. Sorry, Danny, it's a big premium for a guy you can get for free in the summer. I know his wage is going to be high, but still, yeah, we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, well, Barcelona can't afford him, and no matter how many levers they pull. And the news confirmed by Lewandowski last week that he was asked to slow down his scoring rate so they wouldn't have to give Bayern Munich an extra $2.5 million. Just shows the state they're in.
That's mad.
I mean,
what about Spurs, though, Danny? Because we were talking this prior to the show. Brennan Johnson sold. Then, of course, typically, Kudos, who'd replaced him, gets injured. So you'd imagine, for lots of reasons, Spurs need to do some business this month.
They do.
Yeah, I think there's kind of two.
They keep, Mark, sorry, Ben, they keep on talking about wide players and all the rest of it. It is clear to anybody with two eyes in their head that what Spurs need is a central midfielder who can progress the ball. Because in each of the last three games, their combined midfield players have passed less than the opposition's one decent passer. So there's all kinds of issues. They need to sort out the left-handed forward side. You know, they haven't replaced Son any more than they replaced Kane. They've got some big players coming back, Ben, but Spurs will be busy.
Yeah, they will be busy. They're going to back Thomas Frank, from what I understand. And as you say, a central midfielder and a wide player seem to be highest on the agenda. I think by summer they'll want to add a number 9 as well, and maybe even another form of goalkeeper too. But right now, if there's to do anything mid-season, midfielder or left-sided attacker, whether that's a winger or whether that's more of a wide forward, Yan Diomande is one to watch. Manchester United, Bayern, PSG are the clubs interested there. I still think only in the summer will he become genuinely affordable, because you're dealing with Leipzig and you never get a cheap deal from the Red Bull group. And if it is to be now, it might be closer to 100 million euros. If it's to be the summer, a lot of the suitors, Spurs included, think they can do that deal at 60, 65 million euros. But we should note one thing about Tottenham. They had 70 million plus in the summer, ring fence for Savinho, and it wasn't a deal that Ferran Soriano on the Man City board was prepared to sanction. Let's see whether that's a different case in January or the summer, and that will inform whether Spurs wait, because their number one target is Savinho. If they can get him now, or they can get him in the summer, and maybe Antoine Semenyo's arrival changes the board position, that's the direction they'll go. If they can't get him, then Diomande, even if they buy him now in January, might be a little bit cheaper than that number, depending on how hard Leipzig negotiate. Players at AFCON as well, so there's a few complications. So he's one to watch. And then João Paulinho is expected to stay at Tottenham. They've got an option to buy, but still another midfield destroyer is likely to come in. And I've heard a few names. One is actually Andre Santos at Chelsea, but I'm not sure those clubs will do business. And if Liam Rosenior comes in as expected at Chelsea, he really likes the player.
No chance.
No way on earth that's going to happen. No.
But there'll have to be outgoings, because Chelsea, for example, are going to be in the race for Elliot Anderson during the summer. So something's got to give in that Chelsea midfield. Yeah. And then I expect Tottenham to be in the conversation for the summer for Adam Wharton as well.
But Savinho's interesting because he's a slight risk, isn't he? I mean, he's obviously a prospect, but there's a slight lack of end product there, so that'll be interesting to see if Spurs.
Well, Spurs have already got a number of those playing out wide for them. It is interesting to me, Ben, finally, that the Diomande thing shows up quite obviously that nowadays potential is costing more than actual proven quality. Because, and West Ham fans forgive me, I'm just using this as an example, you could get Jared Bowen, absolute Premier League quality, tried, tested, tempered, for significantly less than what you'd have to risk to get Diomande.
Yeah, and I mean, it was the same with Manchester United. They went for Benjamin Sesko, and Ollie Watkins might have been a fraction cheaper. But in this era of PSR, even though the financial rules are changing, we're heading towards a strategy where clubs want value for money, and you get that via longevity. So if a player's going to give you 5 to 7 years on a lower wage, but with a higher transfer fee, a lot of clubs are moving in that direction, overpaying the higher transfer fee and still a high wage and actually only getting a player for a couple of years. So it's a balancing act in many ways, but you're absolutely right. The Red Bull Group charge a premium on potential. They charge a premium on value. They charge a premium on the fact that the player's young, and a lot of clubs are preferring to go down that route because they can spread the cost over a number of years, and they think the player's going to become good and give them a return on investment. But obviously right now, Spurs and Manchester United in particular, they need something a bit more instant. And it will be interesting to see in the summer, especially should West Ham go down, if actually Spurs do think that somebody like Jared Bowen is a more viable kind of option. The only sort of downside is that Mohamed Kudus was kind of brought in as the right player, and that's why Tottenham have got a bit more focus on the left-hand side, because Kudus isn't going anywhere this summer.
No. Yeah, well, you know Spurs better than that, Ben. I mean, if West Ham went down, they would go for the fun and games of Lucas Paquetá ahead of the proven quality of Jared Bowen. I just know that. Listen, thank you very much indeed, Ben Jacobs, who will be keeping you across all the transfer news and indeed just tittle-tattle over the next apparently endless 25 days of the transfer window. The Turkish transfer window this season, incidentally, closes the same day as the rest of Europe. So their money-rich clubs will not be doing their usually of picking off the leftovers at the end of the transfer window. You're listening. My goodness, we've already done 2 hours. It's flying by, at least for me. I hope it is for you, the listeners, as well. You're listening to Kelly and Jacobs. Paul has got laryngitis. Still an hour to go. Look forward to that.
talkSPORT Sports Update, powered by the Nissan van range. Scoring a winning hat-trick of performance, payload and price. Search Nissan Vans or head to your local Nissan Van Centre.
Good afternoon, I'm Max Scott here with your sports headlines. So, 14 months into the 3-year project, Ruben Amorim's been sacked by Manchester United, and it's left Simon Jordan completely bewildered by the whole saga.
What was the point of Ruben Amorim? What was the point of this experience? You've had 14 months of him saying rather absurd things and then seemingly get himself together, a team that's seemingly inch by inch, yard by yard getting slightly better, and then boom.
talkSPORT understands an explosive meeting between Amorim and Jason Wilcox before the Leeds game put the writing on the wall. Our chief football correspondent Alex Crook has more on that.
Ruben Amorim was expecting some backing in this window, and he was told in that meeting in no uncertain terms, actually, we're not going to go big in this window, we're going to save it until the summer. And I think after that meeting, words were exchanged, and Jason Wilcox has reported to the hierarchy that the relationship between the two was untenable.
Club legend Darren Fletcher will take charge for United's clash with Burnley on Wednesday, which is live exclusively on talkSPORT. It's our understanding that the top brass could appoint a different interim till the end of the season, with a view to bringing in Oliver Glasner in the summer. Meanwhile, Enzo Maresca is also said to have a close relationship with the United hierarchy. Elsewhere, Liam Rosenior's arrived in London as his appointment as Maresca's replacement at Chelsea edges even closer. And in transfer news, talkSPORT understands that following injuries to Josko Gvardiol and Ruben Dias, Manchester City are exploring a move for Mark Gahey. The England and Palace centre-back has no plans to extend his current contract, which expires in the summer, but is happy to remain at Selhurst Park for consistent game time ahead of the World Cup. Liverpool, Real Madrid and Bayern Munich are also among other suitors. For all the latest on those stories, head to the website at talksport.com.
talkSPORT News.
The Venezuelan leader heads to a New York court in handcuffs. Sir Keir Starmer shares his thoughts on the matter, and a man's admitted dressing up as a Royal Naval officer on Remembrance Sunday without permission.
talkSPORT weather with Quickfit. For a limited time only, get 15% off a set of 4 selected premium tyres. Don't miss out and book today at quickfit.com and drive away happy every time. Conditions apply.
Many places staying dry today with sunshine, but still very cold. Snow showers will continue across parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland and some coastal counties.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the final hour of today's edition of Hawksbee and Jacobs. A edition of Hawksbee and Jacobs lacking the Hawksbee. The poor fellas are down with laryngitis. Get well soon, Paul. In the meanwhile, me, Danny Kelly, has been dragged. I was going to say by the hair of the head, but that would be inappropriate. Dragged by my collar in to sit in for Paul at short notice.
When you were here anyway, come on.
It would only be possible because Andy Jacobs is still there, that the show has any cohesion whatsoever. We've got a lot to get through in this final hour. We'll be previewing the Premier League darts off the back of that brilliant win by Luke Littler in the World Championship. Steve Harmison will join us to talk about the cricket as England... Well, they got into a good position and then they've not quite managed to cement it. But, you know, that's Test cricket. At least they played some Test cricket. At least most of them did for most of the last 2 days. And we'll get some more of Andy's famous bits. We've got a new way of presenting them that I think may well transform broadcasting in this country.
Well, for a bit,
thank you very much indeed for being here with us. Remember, you're listening to Hawksbee and Jacobs on talkSPORT in partnership with Toolstation. Stay one step ahead, whatever the job. Next stop, Toolstation. Time now, though, for an update with our friends at Paddy Power.
Paddy Power on talkSPORT. With Paddy's Super Sub, your new bet rolls over to the new player coming on. T's and C's and exclusions apply. 18 plus, begambleaware.org.
Yeah, time now, as I say there, for today's Bet Builder with our good friends at Paddy Power. Welcome to Firm Buckley, and we're looking forward to tomorrow night's Premier League match. It's just gigantic. West Ham are playing Nottingham Forest. It says here at Old Trafford, but I presume they're going to play the game in East London. Fern, please remind us of how the Bet Builder works.
Hello, yes, of course. Happy New Year to you, gents.
Happy
We've
New
all
Year,
made
my
some
friend.
picks across different categories, different games. But this one, obviously, this West Ham Forest game, added them all together, got some overall value, and then Paddy Power had put a £10 bet down, hoping we get it right, because it was a little bit tense last year. Andy will laugh at this, though. Our last Bet Builder of 2025, we got bang on the money. So 300 quid for the United Bournemouth game went to the Attitude Foundation. So
I know.
we're starting 26 off strong.
But I love you, Fern, because you are you don't just do this as a job. when the bet came in, you were straight onto us. You were so excited about it. It was great. We were all quite excited.
I know, it was literally, 10 past 10 at night. I was like, guys, we've got to celebrate this.
Well, Bern, nothing great was ever achieved without enthusiasm. I think it was Nietzsche who said that. Oh, no, it's me. And listen, now I feel a great responsibility because there's a great laugh predicting things with everybody's money, but these charities are so brilliant that I want to get this right. So let's. It's a 5-leg bet builder. Here are our picks. Now, the game is going to be so competitive. It has to be because West Ham can't afford to lose this game. Yeah. So my pick is that it's going to be over 3.5 bookings. 4 bookings or more will be what I'm going for. What are you going for, Andy?
I think there's so much at stake, and I think Forest are good enough to get a point there. I think both teams will score.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that almost means definitively if West Ham are going to score, it will be Jared Bowen, and that is the choice of our producer or our production team. They picked Jared to be among those scorers that Andy has predicted. What's the people's pick, Fern?
Well, the people's pick, they actually think it's going to be a Forest win. So despite Jared Bowen hopefully scoring, both teams scoring, they do think Forest is going to have the edge. And like you say, it's such a competitive game. What happens in this may determine, that relegation scrap. And also, you got the Nuno aspect of it all. Going up against his former team could get quite intense on field. So just to say that over 3.5 bookings, that comes in at 1-7. Both teams to score at 13-20 and Jared Bowen to score at 12-5. For a Forest win, though, over 2,500 people have this in their bet builder this afternoon. A Forest win is in at 5-4. And then I've gone with an Elliot Anderson to commit 1 or more fouls because in his 20 appearances in the league this year, he has committed 29. In and away fixtures as well, he's actually regularly reaching 2. So it's another popular pick, and that's at 1-7. And I think we could do it with this.
What does it come in?
Okay, so can you forgive me? I'm not a betting man. Can you tell me what the possibility is that some charity's going to get from these? They all look very convincing picks to me.
I think so, yeah. It all comes in at 25-1. So from a £10 bet, you can get a return of £262 to start your year off. And if we get it right, of course, all that money goes to the Attitude Foundation. And Danny, it will be down to you. We'll celebrate you if we win it.
I would love to be responsible. I'll tell you what, Fern, how much do we put on this? 10, did you say?
Yeah, £10 bet. £10 bet.
If it comes through, I'll match the winnings for the charity, okay?
Oh wow, that's amazing, Danny!
Oh no, I suddenly feel a great sense of responsibility.
Well, I tell you what, I will not be matching it, so don't worry.
Yeah. Well, I will because I'd love to. Thank you. So let me know as soon as possible if I suddenly owe a charity load of money.
Given our form in this section, I'm going to quadruple it.
Listen,
love it.
Sorry, did you say you were going to quadruple it?
No,
I'm not.
Really.
Okay, all right. Listen, everybody, that hubris from me, and it is just showing off. But I would love this to come in for a good charity, and I am happy to help. That's Paddy Power's bet builder for today. The minimum odds 1-5 per leg, and it's 18+ and begamblerware.org, obviously.
Paddy Power on talkSPORT. With Paddy's Super Sub, your new bet rolls over to the new player coming on. T's and C's and exclusions apply. 18+, begamblerware.org.
Now, a feature of this show that used to be, in my opinion, the reason why it is both eternal and wonderful was Andy used to cut out bits out of newspapers that had nothing to do with sport and just read them out. Now, with the ever-increasing amount of sport that talkSPORT covers, he has had less chance to do it. Now, we have very little time here, Andy, but you've got over 100 or 92 to match the number of clubs.
I've got one from this morning though that I want to get in because
do that then. Don't let me choose.
No, you can have a guess in a minute. It was a profile of Henrik Mkhitaryan in the Times, and just as I was reading it, and it struck me, his late dad was called Hamlet. It's a pretty unusual name, Hamlet. I don't know if he was a mate of Terry Yorick. Come on. There you go.
Andy, you're a bit like when Spurs, when they brought on Dane Scarlett yesterday in the latter stage of the game against Sunderland. I always want them to hand the skipper's armband to him. Of course I do.
Of course you do.
Yeah.
Perfect. Anyway.
Well, now, the way Andy's got this arranged, he's got 92 of these bits that he saved up over the last couple of weeks. I'm allowed to pick a number. I'm going to pick 56 as the number, Andy. What's the story?
Okay.
Andy, ignore the numbers. Just read the best story.
Don't give it away. No, don't do that, because that would be cheating.
I'm letting daylight in on magic, yeah.
Okay. Now, I've had a recut over the Christmas period because I had about 204. And I started looking at them and I thought, some of these really are quite lame. So I got rid of them.
Really?
Yeah, well, most of them are really, let's be honest. But this one comes under the heading of column fodder. That's where somebody writes a column, gets paid for it, but can't really think of anything to write and just puts in any old nonsense. And this one is, I don't know, this must come from last summer. It said, show it off, that's why you bought it. We went shopping, said the columnist, to buy more holiday clothes that we'll be able to wear only a few weeks a year. Back at the house, I immediately put on my new shirt, but my host was having none of that. He was saving his for some occasion that merited breaking it out. And so I discovered a great hidden divide amongst shoppers. One group of people promptly wear their new clothes. Others squirrel theirs away, waiting for heaven knows what. Baffling. It's fantastic, isn't it, Jim?
It's extraordinary. Literally, money has changed hands for those words to be written and published. It's extraordinary, isn't it?
Brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's column fodder for you at its best.
Oh, breaking news. Forget about Chelsea. Forget about Manchester United. Celtic have sacked Wilfred
really?
Nancy.
Yeah, it was inevitable, wasn't it? Wow.
Paul will... we'll get the statement to you in just a couple of seconds, but
here comes Max Scott's with us now. He's just settling himself in. We'll give him a bit of a second.
Yeah,
but what we were saying to
Stuart
Weir, it was inevitable. He couldn't survive the stuff, the results, and the way it was, and his way.
What is it? 8 games he's been in charge. Why don't Max give it? Here's Max Scott with all the latest on this breaking news that Celtic.
Are you
have
with us,
sacked...
Max? You're right.
Yes, I'm ready. Yeah, this is you've said it, Danny. I mean, this is a day of managerial turmoil, isn't it? One of the biggest clubs in England, the biggest clubs in Scotland, 2 huge European giants sacking their managers. The latest is that Wilfred Nancy has been sacked. Celtic say that they've terminated his contract with immediate effect. They thank him for his efforts.
Tremendous.
And wish him and his family well for the future. They've also confirmed that his backroom staff have also gone. Celtic say the club can confirm that Paul Tisdale has left his position as head of football operations as well. Wow. They thank him for his contributions. So huge rebuild ongoing at Celtic Football Club. Just to confirm the news, Wilfred Nancy has been sacked as Celtic boss.
What a mess.
Well, Max, we now know who Celtic are blaming for his appointment as well if Tisdale has gone.
Well, exactly. I mean, and this is sort of root and branch sort of change required. And it's interesting that we're seeing this at these huge football clubs with huge histories and legacies.
But you can't survive it. Sorry, Danny, but you can't survive. You follow a bloke that's has done a really good job temporarily, but a brilliant manager like Martin O'Neill with those players, and then you come in and turn in performances and results like he has. He couldn't survive.
Yeah. And Danny said it right at the top of the show regarding Ruben Amorim, and I think that the same very much applies to Wilfred Nancy, is that you can have your principles and you can have success in a different context, but when you upgrade to the biggest clubs in their respective countries and expect that rigidity to still work, there has to be an element of of nous, and I think we haven't seen that with Amorim and we haven't seen that with Nancy, and that is why we're seeing both of them lose their jobs.
Absolutely.
And finally on this, it is amazing how this echoes exactly what Rangers did a few weeks ago when they got rid of not just the manager, but the people who are responsible for the manager. Amazing few weeks in Glasgow football, and that noise, if you open a window, that noise you can hear is Heart of Midlothian rubbing their hands together at the chaos.
Well, not if
in
Martin
Glasgow.
O'Neill comes back.
if Martin O'Neill comes back, they may not be quite so joyful. Thanks, Max, and I'm sure Max and his colleagues in our news department will be gathering up more and more details about that on the day that Ruben Amorim has parted company with Manchester United. Celtic have also sacked Wilfred Nancy. More about that very, very soon here on your home of football, talkSPORT. Yeah, look, Celtic are a huge club. Everything they do is huge news. And the news that they have sacked Wilfried Nancy after, I think, just 8 games in charge, he may have played a cup game or 2 in that, I don't know, was just broken by Ben Jacobs, who was on the show just a few seconds ago and rejoins us now. Hello, Ben.
Such is the nature of the transfer window. 2 managers going in a day.
Ben, other outlets are still struggling to catch up with this news. Tell us how you found out and how it's unfolded for Wilfried. 1 minute you're playing the Old Firm derby, the first one for him, and the next minute you're being shown the door.
Yeah, I think it was always likely that his position would come under discussion at Celtic following that Old Firm derby loss. And as a consequence, my understanding is that yesterday there was an emergency board meeting and it was decided unanimously to part ways, and now it's been confirmed today. So Wilfried Nancy has left very soon, of course, into his Celtic tenure with immediate effect, and his assistants, Quain Ampadu, Jules Guegan and Maxime Chalier, have also left as well, and Paul Tisdale has also departed as head of football operations, which perhaps shows you that Celtic feel their problems are not only manager specific. And as far as Nancy is concerned, it was a difficult spell. The fan base were largely against him after a poor start. They were conceding a lot of goals. There was no real plan. They were losing ground on the leaders' Hearts, who they already had to catch up with. And let's not forget that they lost to Hearts in one of their recent games as well. And it all adds up to a very short spell. Nancy only joined from Columbus Crew on the 4th of December, but he won a very poor number of matches, especially if you consider it to the record of Martin O'Neill, who won 7 of his 8 games, and then form suddenly dipped after that. And there was a run of form within Nancy's results where he made some unwanted history, becoming the first Celtic manager to lose 4 games in a row since the legendary manager Jock Stein back in 1978. So the writing's been on the wall for quite some time, and now we have to see whether Celtic can find a permanent successor or if they're going to turn back again to Martin O'Neill.
I don't know how these deals work, though, because I think that's quite interesting. The bloke signs a 2.5-year contract and his staff. There surely must have been some break clause, and they're not going to pay him 2.5 years' money, are they? Maybe they have to, but it would seem a very strange thing.
Most football clubs, if the manager is, unless they're an absolute elite who they're begging to come, it's 6 months. They get paid 6 months of the contract.
Okay. Well.
Now, that may not be the case there, but I was just about to ask Ben Jacobs, without getting in too much into plays about Scotland, and particularly Macbeth, poor old Wilfried Nancy had not 1 but 2 ghosts sitting over his feast at Celtic Park. Both Martin O'Neill and I suspect Ange Postecoglou, just they're hovering over that club, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, Ange Postecoglou would perhaps be the most obvious choice and an easy way of winning the fan base over. And yet, prior to Nancy, Postecoglou was a contender and wasn't that keen on diving into the role and returning to Celtic. So something would have to change there. And wage is another factor as well.
He's
so
used
Celtic
to getting very big money now, isn't he?
Yeah, and I mean, he might obviously make a concession because he knows he's not going to get Premier League money and a Premier League job imminently, but that's a consideration there. So Postecoglou may be spoken of. Gary O'Neill's a really interesting one because he was on the shortlist as well, and at the moment, he's waiting to see if he's got the Strasbourg job. So if Celtic wanted to make an approach to Gary O'Neill, they'd have to do it very quickly because right now he's only 1 step away from joining Strasbourg, allowing Liam Rosenior to move to Chelsea. So Celtic are going to have to move fast. I think there'll be some in the fan base that are actually in favour of Martin O'Neill not just coming back as caretaker, but being the permanent manager as well, which would be at the other extreme. And then from Nancy's perspective, I feel for him in many ways because he's a highly rated coach. Yeah. It didn't work at Celtic, high pressure, but I don't think his reputation as a coach will be significantly damaged.
Why is he highly rated? He was at Columbus Crew. Why does that make him highly rated? He's not highly rated. Who's he highly rated by? Nobody.
Well, Paul Tisdale, apparently.
Come on.
I think his philosophy and the man management and the youth development in MLS caught a lot of clubs' attention, which is ultimately why you get the Celtic job. And to get the Celtic job, you're highly rated. To lose the Celtic job between the 4th of December and the 5th of January, your whole career can't go to pot. So, of course, it was unfortunate, and absolutely he was the wrong manager for that club at the wrong time and was exposed in his results compared to Martin O'Neill, who did brilliant. And one of the reasons for that, I think, is his experience and the fact that O'Neill knows Celtic really well. But Nancy's going to go away, and even though this is a career low for him, I still expect him to be in demand.
Big difference between Maresca, Wilfred Nancy and Amorim. At least Maresca actually won some stuff. It's true though, isn't it, really?
Well, I mean, but of course, Andy, you're pointing to the unique nature of modern Chelsea FC, whereby it doesn't matter whether you're the champions of the world, you're still about 3 games away.
Or manager of the month 3 weeks earlier.
Absolutely, absolutely. Ben, thank you again for your assistance and for making sure that talkSPORT is right across this story. Ben Jacobs there. Of course, you can see his work all over our website and elsewhere as he continues to probe the ins and outs of the transfer market. But it's not transfers today that are dominating the headlines. As I say, Ruben Amorim has gone at Manchester United. Loads about that over on talksport.com as well. And as we heard in the last 10 minutes, Wilfred Nancy, after a tenure that makes Russell Martin seem like a lifer at Rangers, has now been dismissed by their great city rivals Celtic. And I suppose on a personal view, people will say, well, Martin O'Neill, he passed perhaps the age when you ought to be doing a stressful job, but given what he did during his previous interim, why not is the answer to that. Why wouldn't you go for somebody who it's not about knowing Celtic, he knows the Scottish Premier League, he knows how to put out a team
young for his
to
age,
get results.
You know what I mean? He's young. He's a young 72 if you can beat that.
And he's a smart guy, and he would surround himself with good people too. Listen, thank you very much indeed for that. Still loads to get through. We're talking about the Premier League darts very, very soon here on Hawksbee and Jacobs, where, unless, I can't guarantee what we'll be talking about because somebody somewhere is probably getting sacked even as we speak.
As you heard, broken first on talkSPORT, Ruben Amorim has been sacked as the Manchester United head coach, not manager. The club has posted a statement of just 106 words, which includes, with Manchester United sitting 6th in the Premier League, the club's leadership has reluctantly made the decision that it is the right time to make a change. Amorim launched into a spiky rant yesterday after a 1-1 draw at Ellen Road, seemingly criticising the Man United hierarchy.
I came here to be the manager of Manchester United, not to be the coach. And every department, the scouting department, the sport director needs to do their job. I will do mine for 18 months and then we move on.
Just after the news broke this morning, talkSPORT's Simon Jordan questioned Amorim's outburst.
The idea that you can communicate to your people that you work for through the media, I think, is unprofessional. You wouldn't want your players going out and saying something dreadful about you as a manager. So why would you expect a manager to be able to say something to the hierarchy, the real power in the room, and expect to get away with it?
talkSPORT's chief football correspondent Alex Crook has suggested as soon as Amorim spoke yesterday, things were untenable, and in the club's record under him, this wasn't going to end well.
When a manager goes to war with his paymasters, there is only one winner. And particularly when you're talking about a manager who's been in charge for 14 months, he's had more than 60 games, he's won less than half those games.
So Manchester United are 6th, now managerless, with numerous players away due to injury and AFCON. Darren Fletcher will take charge of the team against Burnley on Wednesday, a match live here on talkSPORT. On the 17th of January, they'll welcome Manchester City to Old Trafford for the second Manchester derby of the season. That's also live on talkSPORT. You can get all the fallout of this breaking news on talkSPORT.com.
£26K for 2026 on talkSPORT.
Yeah, talkSPORT now that 2026 is here, we're giving you a massive chance to win a huge £26,000. What better way to kick off 2026 than with some serious cash? Yep, 26 grand. It's our biggest New Year cash giveaway ever, and it could be yours.
Yes, and for your chance to win, text WIN to 83338. Text costs £2.50 plus your standard network rate, or call 0343 423 9761. Lines close 12 p.m. Friday. That's when you'll need to answer your phone if it rings. UK residents only, 18 plus. This is a network promotion. Full T's and C's at talksport.com/win. So for your chance to win, text WIN, W-I-N, to 83338 now. And good luck.
Now, of course, this Monday is really the first working day of the new year for many people, and boy, are the sports authorities giving us plenty. They're really getting busy.
They're busy,
those huge, if you include Chelsea, 3 huge sackings in 24 hours.
What's Chelsea a sacking, though? I'm not sure it was.
The announcement of the Premier League darts been put back 15 minutes, which we were going to do next. It's been put back while the news agencies and sporting outlets like ourselves scramble. We'll be trying to get on a further guest in just a second, but it means, Andy, we've got an unlikely further opening for your bits. Now, can we do another number one? Yes.
Oh yeah, sure. I thought. Oh, all right. Okay, it's all changed.
Well,
it's a movable feast.
It is a movable feast until I hear somebody else's voice other than yours in my ear. I'm just going to carry on.
We can talk for half an hour.
We're going to freestyle this now, Andy.
Good.
For those of you who are foolish enough to miss the show 20 minutes ago, Andy, who has his traditional bits, has numbered them now, so I can play a kind of roulette game where I will choose a number, and he will read out the normally meaningless piece of tosh that newspapers have come up with, which make for great entertainment here on H&J. And the number I'm going to choose this time, Andy, is I'm going back to the house I grew up in, number 13.
Number 13. Yeah. Okay, this is Posh People News. These are when a sort of medium-ranged tabloid newspaper write about posh people for people who aren't posh, and I never understand why they'd be interested in this. Here's one. Notting Hill pub, the Cow, was overrun by, this was in the Mail, overrun by young royals last week. Princess Margaret's grandchildren, Lady Margarita Armstrong-Jones and Sam Chatto, Bowling Chatto, were joined by the Duke of Kent's grandson, Eddie Downpatrick. Did he? I hope the red carpet came. Who cares, honestly?
I know. These are the grandchildren of people I've forgotten about. You know, it's just incredible.
It's fantastic, isn't
Listen, we've got a voice has whispered into my ear, Andy. Mickey Gray is, of course, our Manchester correspondent, and so it's a huge day for him. Hello, Mick.
Danny, Andy, how are you doing? Yeah, it's a pretty busy day today for me.
It would be, wouldn't it?
Just incredible. First of all, let me get past Sunderland overrunning Spurs in the second half. That's one of those things. Look, Ruben Amorim, I think his communication skills have kept him in the job for the past few months, but his communication skills have also talked himself out of the job in the last 24 hours. Inevitable once he started having a go at the people upstairs, I think.
Yeah, he's certainly wavered in a couple of his last interviews, hasn't he, Danny, when we've heard Ruben Amorim speak. And I was actually in his press conference Friday just gone when one of the newspaper guys asked him 2 or 3 questions and he refused to answer it on 3 occasions.
I don't want to talk about that, yeah.
Yeah, and I think from that moment on, he'd obviously, before he came into the press conference, he'd obviously had an interview, a one-to-one with Jason Wilcox, of who they wanted to try and bring in January. And I think he'd been promised these signings in January, but I think you look at Manchester United and they probably haven't got the funds to bring in the players that Ruben Amorim wants to bring in January. So there was obviously a fallout between himself and Jason Wilcox. And I think from that moment, I think the writing was on the wall and it was either one or the other who were going to leave the club. And I was quite surprised that it was Ruben Amorim. I think if you're going to stick by a manager like Sir Jim Ratcliffe said he was going to do for 3 years, then I was quite surprised it was Ruben Amorim. I know that might be a surprise to a few people, but if a manager wants players to come in the club, then you give him the funds to go and get those players, because if Man United want to get back into Champions League football, they need help, and they need help on the pitch.
United were progressing, though, but it's amazing that no one does what Arsenal did with Arteta. They just don't do it. They just don't back the managers. I think this guy might have got it right in the end. And there certainly was progress. You could definitely see that. So it is a bit of a strange thing. But again, we've talked about the fact that these managers, once they start criticising their bosses, it's over. It's bound to be over. You didn't need to do that. You know, people... I think they look at it and they think that if the results are really terrible, people are going to look at them and then their future job prospects are virtually nil. And I think that's why they do all this stuff.
Yeah, well, Andy, you've just seen it yourself, haven't you, with your club in Enzo Maresca. And he didn't last very much long after he'd done a couple of interviews himself. It feels like that's the pedestal for them, isn't it, to sit in a press conference or after a game, and that's where they can kind of vault their rant, if you like.
He was in a stronger position, though, wasn't he, than Amorim? You know, he'd actually won stuff. They did finish top 4. They are in the Champions League. With him, I think it's different. I think Maresca wanted out. You just get that sense that he talked himself out of the job. Here, I think Amorim was trying to protect his future employment chances.
Yeah. Look, I think we're all on the same page, Danny and Andy, here, aren't we? We all know that Manchester United's squad isn't good enough, and he does need recruitment. He does need players to come into that starting 11 to improve Manchester United. Certainly with the system that he wanted to play. You know, the 5 at the back, they haven't got wing-backs. They haven't got wing-backs who are good enough to play in that system for Manchester United. Yes, he was given £240 million in the summer to bring in forward players, and they have improved in that position because, you know, the stats are there for everybody to see. They have scored a lot more goals, but they're still conceding goals. And that is a big concern. And if you think that Manchester United are not playing European football this year, so they've got no distractions, they're already out of the Carabao Cup, they got that beating from Grimsby, then they should be able to go into Premier League games week in, week out, whether it's in midweek or whether it's on a weekend, whether you lose players to AFCON or not, and your star player in Bruno Fernandes, they should still be good enough to go and win football matches and even challenge that top 4.
Yeah, you can't.
I mean, I feel sorry for Amorim in one way. I mean, the recruitment of Manchester United over the past 5 years has become ever more chaotic, and it doesn't help when players that they've paid big money for or who've brought through the academy and been superstars. Marcus Rashford is a kind of separate issue because clearly he'd become tired at Old Trafford. But you see what Scott McTominay has done at Naples, and now Rasmus Højlund is starting to look like the player he was as a youngster in Germany.
And Sancho at Villa.
Exactly. When Jim Ratcliffe, like it or not, is a hardened businessman. When he sees this thing, Andy has a theory about this, Mickey, that somebody has to be the fall guy at these huge clubs. Loads of people have departments with offices and car parking spaces and power. In some cases, the manager's a sacrificial lamb now for mistakes made elsewhere. And when you saw Manchester United playing the other day with a load of teenagers on the pitch, and at one stage 2 teenage centre-backs and poor old Luke Shaw playing in a back 3, you just think, how does a club of this size, with any kind of decent planning, end up with this 11 on the pitch?
Well, Danny, it's a decade of mistakes, Danny. That's what it's down to. Bringing in the wrong personnel to the football club. I don't know if it was the wrong or the right manager, but let's be honest with you, Ruben Amorim, he gave those players that you've talked about there, he gave most of those players an opportunity to play for Manchester United. Sure. And we watched them players. And they weren't good enough. Marcus Rashford was distracted. He didn't want to be there.
That's very fair.
He was getting criticised every single week. Scott McTominay wasn't a regular in Manchester United starting 11 at the time. Jadon Sancho did not play well for Manchester United. And I think you mentioned a couple of others there as well, but they all didn't play well for Manchester United. So that was one of the reasons. Yeah. Those players left the club for one reason. And there was also another big reason as well. They wanted the wages to be cut down at Manchester United. So Jim Ratcliffe's done that. And a lot of people have lost their jobs at the club as well. And that's frustrated a lot of people around Manchester and certainly Manchester United. But I think he had to do that for a reason. So he was kind of the scapegoat, the chairman, or so-called chairman, in Sir Jim Ratcliffe. But I think the signings that came on in the summer, most of them have done pretty well. But I think we all know they're still nowhere near the end product, Manchester United, and where they want to be.
It'll be interesting with Darren Fletcher, because last time they had a temporary interim manager, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, they did pretty well, didn't they? So, and he knows the club. He knows the club's history. His sons are in the team, aren't they? So, he must have some chance of doing okay.
Yeah, Andy, look, I think... Well, personally, I hope he does well. He loves that football club. But you talk about interim managers, let's not forget about Ralf Rangnick. Because, when Ralf Rangnick walked through that door at Manchester United, those players switched off. They did not want to play for that manager. You could see that Ralf Rangnick was getting frustrated every single week. So that is the concern. That is the problem. Yes, you're right to bring up Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. And I hope that Darren Fletcher, knowing that he's been at that club for a long time, we've seen his 2 sons were on the bench the other day.
They'll respect
an opportunity as well. Yeah, I hope they do. But what's going to happen in this January window now, I really don't know, because there was talk of Xerxes maybe going out, and then Ruben Amorim turned around and said, no players will be leaving this club. The squad's bleak anyway. So I just can't see any new faces. There's been talk about bringing a midfield player in. Ruben Neves, I think, from the Saudi League, from Al Hilal for £15 million. That's the type of players they're going to have to go for, because Elliot Anderson, Adam Wharton, they're too pricey at the moment. If you're talking £60-65 million to bring in those type of players, they're going to have to wait to the summer.
And yet they spent, what did they spend on Sesko? 70 million on?
Yeah.
It's about addressing your needs.
It's all a mess, Mickey, and I rely on people like you to try and guide us through the latest mine upon which Manchester United have stepped. As I say, they've been in some kind of existential crisis ever since Alex Ferguson left the club. They need to settle this down somehow, and that starts with having better players than they've got. I often wonder to myself when I watch them playing these days, if it wasn't for Bruno Fernandes, what is that team? But listen, they've made their decision now. They have to lie in that bed. Thank you very much indeed for joining us, Mickey, at such short notice. Thanks to Mickey Gray there. Now, the announcement of the players who are going to take part in the upcoming Premier League darts has been put back to 3:50. We'll be bringing you that next, I hope, in the company of the fantastic Mark Wilson, as we head towards the finishing line in this very, very hectic edition of Hawksbee and Jacobs. If Paul hadn't got laryngitis at the start of this show, he'd be definitely towards having it by the end. We've had to talk a lot about stuff breaking left, right and centre. Darts next. Right, refocus. After things keep happening. Listen, in the meanwhile, you're listening to Hawksbee and Jacobs here on talkSPORT in partnership with Toolstation. Pick up your wet weather essentials today. Next stop is Toolstation.
Today's show, though, does remind me of, I don't know if you remember when talkSPORT covered the England Test tour to South Africa, and they had a very early collapse, and all we could hear was the great Mark Nicholas going, "Gone! Gone!" We used it we had it as a clip, and Wilfred Nancy, "Gone!" Ruben Amorim, "Gone!"
Gone!
It's one of those. Anyway, let's move on to darts.
Well, yeah. Now, listen, the darts have been clever enough to postpone the announcement of the 8 who will take place in the Premier League by a few minutes because letting outlets like ourselves deal with the football, because that's what works. I'm delighted to say, though, we're now joined by Mark Wilson, who's done such brilliant work over on talkSPORT 2 in the recent PDC World Championship darts at Ali Pali, and now turns his attention to this shortlist that's just been announced for the upcoming Premier League. 4 names we knew already, Mark. The top 4 in the World Championship: Littler, Humphreys, Jan van Veen, and Michael van Gerwen. I guess the great interest is in who will be the other 4 players attempting to win the Premier League.
Yeah, look, good afternoon, guys, first of all. Yeah, thanks for waiting. It's not often the darts has to wait these days, but some things do take priority, as you said. We knew the top 4. I guess the surprise inclusion, if you like, Gerwin Price is involved. Johnny Clayton comes back in. Josh Rock also included as well. And Stephen Bunting retains his place. I think there was a lot of doubt about Stephen getting in again, despite the fact he's had a decent year. It's not been a great year. So I think the 2 ones that maybe count themselves lucky, Gerwin Price and Stephen Bunting.
And obviously, who would count themselves unlucky not to be in the 8?
Well, Nathan Aspinall was in it last year. He's won 3 European Tour events. He misses out. As he had quite a good enough year, he was certainly knocking on the door. Danny Noppert's in the top 10 in the world. He's reached semi-finals galore in big tournaments. He's not quite made that big breakthrough, and that may be just what's holding him back at the minute. James Wade, highly ranked, but seems to get overlooked these days. I think those would be the 3 big ones that would be disappointed they're not in.
It's been a massive success, the darts, even more than usual, I think. And there's a piece in the Times and the Guardian today calling it the Glastonbury of sport, and it struck me, Mark, that you love 2 sports. One has a problem attracting people and tries everything that it can to do it, and the other one just basically can't stop. You know, it's amazing, isn't it, the difference between how sports are perceived.
Yeah, I mean, you make a great point, Andy, about the clamour to be involved in the darts. I think we've noticed a massive change in the audience in recent years at Ali Pali. There's lots of couples, my age, our age, going to the darts now. They want to be seen going to the darts. It's the in thing to do. They want to be putting it all over social media, say they've been and seeing how great the darts is. So it's an event. And the madness about it is you buy your tickets that far in advance. You don't even know who's playing. The Premier League's sold out. They could have put us 3 in it and it'd still be sold out. So it's all the controversy.
That'd be undynamic pricing, Mark. Tickets going in reverse.
But there might be a few refunds.
It's very interesting. Mark Bukowski, who we've had on the show over the years, he's a well-known PR expert. He says darts has got that weird mixture of pantomime, cosplay, and live sport. And he also goes on to talk about Luke Littler, and this is something we can touch on because he did face a bit of a sort of backlash, say, and. He makes the point, Bukowski, that it's very, very British to basically, sort of kill people who are doing really well, that we resent success. And I think that would be a real shame with Luke Littler if the fans turned on him. I heard this morning on talkSPORT people saying, is he good for the sport, his dominance? But of course he's good. He's been absolutely brilliant for the sport, hasn't he?
Yeah, it's transformed it. There's no doubt about it. They've got a new bumper multi-million-pound TV deal. It's all over the radio with us at Christmas, and when we got the match playing, hopefully we'll do some more events as well. So, yeah, it's boom time now, and people are making a lot of money on the back of Luke Littler, and the players are themselves. They're part of it as well. They can't take that away from them. But Littler arriving just when he did seemed perfect timing, and that big new TV that we're seeing playing for £5 million, not just £1 million that Littler got at the Worlds, £5 million prize money. It's life-changing money for a lot of people, and I think it makes the demand to be involved in it even greater. And I think that's what they're hoping, that we've seen players from Kenya, from Singapore, from Switzerland winning on the stage for the first time. For an Indian player won this time. The clamour you'd imagine to get there now is just going to grow and grow and grow. And I think it's only going to get bigger in the next few years.
I mean, clearly he's phenomenal, but you never know the future with very young phenomena in sport, Mark. But is the Premier League already a case of what can the other 7 do to stop Luke Littler winning it?
Well, yeah, not only Littler, Humphreys is the champion, but it's been Littler against Humphreys the last 2 years. They've only been in it 2 years, so somebody's going to have to upset the apple cart. But it's a long old haul. 16 weeks. They're travelling all around Europe. They're travelling the continent, so it's tough. It's tough, but there's 4 spots in the playoffs up for grabs at the end of it, and then it's all on the night, isn't it? Finals night. If you can beat one of them, if they get there, then it's yours to win. So it is an open event, and they all know. The beauty of it is they all know they can win it.
Brilliant.
Listen, Mark, thank you for this, and thank you again for your work over the past 3 weeks. It's been fantastic on the darts. I've been a regular listener while doing all kinds of other things, reading books and what have you. Thank you very much indeed. And thank you all for listening to a very, very topsy-turvy edition of Hawksbee and Jacobs. Hopefully Paul will be back tomorrow. Thank you, Andy.
Thank you, Danny.
Next, it's Andy Goldstein, Darren Bent and Noel Gallagher. No doubt taking the mickey out of Manchester United. Should be a great edition of Drive. That's next. God bless you all and good afternoon.